Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Found Kushina's Secret Diary. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
After nearly 3 weeks of the month break, every combatant had been diligently preparing for the finals. Shino was training with his insect hive to take on puppet user Konkuro, his opponent from the sand. He had to make plans based on his knowledge of his opponent's capabilities. With no desire to compete or win, Shikamaru was essentially forced to train with Choji and Asuma. Calling it all, nothing but a drag. To paraphrase Shikamaru, Sasuke was making the most of every opportunity he had to hone his abilities and become proficient in the Chidori, a formidable jutsu that might come in handy against his opponent Gaara. Throughout it all, Kakashi maintained a close eye on both his training and the curse mark on his shoulder. Neji was watching the Hyuga main branch to advance further and giving it everything he had. Since his outlook on life was skewed, he didn't genuinely care about his opponent and thought the Uzumaki was destined to fail like Hinata. On the other hand, Naruto's training was going much more smoothly than anyone had anticipated. He had just finished forging dirt into stone to complete his earth chakra and had finished the first stage of his wind chakra transformation thanks to the shadow clones, but he still had trouble with water. He still needed to work on his summoning abilities because at the moment, he could only summon the two Toad brothers, Gamakichi and Gamatatsu. Despite this, Naruto did connect with the two Toads more because they were also only kids like him. Whenever Gamatatsu was called upon, he would always have some snacks ready for them and allow Gamakichi to ride on his head. Jiraiya made an effort to teach Naruto collaboration jutsu with Gamariki, but the two were constantly fighting because of their completely different personalities. Particularly after Naruto used a large chakra burst to send Gamariki into the river while trying to teach him how to dispel genjutsu. The two had never really been able to agree on anything since. The real Naruto was concentrating on learning the second stage of the wind transformation by trying to split the waterfall in half during that time. He was transforming their chakra into a wind blade by pushing it with a group of shadow clones. Naruto soon found out that the second stage was harder than the first. It was one thing to cut a leaf, but quite another to cut a waterfall. However, Naruto was adamant about strengthening himself in order to defeat Neji and show him that fate and destiny were not predetermined and that the decision was left up to the individual making it. Naruto exclaimed, "Ha!" as they stood at the base of the waterfall. Naruto could only carry roughly 15 shadow clones at a time due to the waterfall's small size. Though it only touched the surface of the waterfall, he utilized all the lessons he had learned and charged his chakra to create a strong wind blade. The other clones kept pushing their chakra out, and the clone Naruto cursed, "Damn it. This is so much harder than a leaf." From a distance, Jiraiya saw Naruto attempting to cut the waterfall and the Narutos attempting to compact the pounds of dirt in front of them into a single, massive boulder. Though not significantly more, the Narutos belonging to the water group were beginning to extract more water from the leaves. He's making progress. This clone trick has accelerated his training far better than I would have imagined. It was a good thing he discovered it, otherwise, I doubt he would have learned much in a month, Jiraiya thought as he examined every clone. Still, we've only got 2 weeks left until the finals, and so far he hasn't been able to tap into the 9 Tails chakra, other than that time I used the genjutsu. I could try it again, but I doubt it will work, not to mention now he can detect genjutsu and I'm not that good at them. And another thing, he still needs to come up with a plan to beat Neji, oi Naruto. He yelled as Naruto turned to his instructor. As Naruto nodded and motioned to his clones, he yelled, "That's enough for the day, come here, we need to chat." Dividing them up into groups so he wouldn't experience severe mental overload. But there was a water bottle and an aspirin waiting for him, just in case. Naruto drank the water and said, "Ha, that's better. So, what do you want to talk about, pervy sage?" "Stop calling me that, never mind. The thing I wanted to talk to you about was your plan." "My plan to beat Neji?" "Well, I admit it's still a work in progress. But thanks to the training and all those books you had me read, I know I've gotten a lot stronger. And once I learn some jutsu I reckon I have a chance at beating him," Naruto said with a clenched fist. Jiraiya questioned, "That's good, but I was referring to your next opponent," as Naruto arched an eyebrow. "My next opponent?" "Yeah, you do know that after you beat Neji, you will be faced off with another opponent, and from what I hear it will be either between Sasuke Uchiha or Gaara of the Sand," Jiraiya said while Naruto was blinking. Jiraiya sighed and he said, "Oh yeah. Wow. I've just been so focused on Neji I kind of forgot?" He smirked and said, "Oh boy kid, well I can't blame you. I mean you were doing this for your girlfriend after all," as Naruto furrowed his brows. "Huh? Hinata's not my girlfriend, she's just someone I knew back at the academy. I'll admit she does seem kind of cute, but she'd always go red and avoid eye contact whenever she was around me. I think she might have a sickness or something." Jiraiya replied with a forehead smack. "Oh brother," he said in a low voice. He smiled and blushed and said, "Besides, I've got my sights set on another, my teammate Sakura." Jiraiya experienced instant flashbacks to his early years and his numerous attempts to meet Tsunade. Leaning forward on his rock and resting his chin on his hands, he thought to himself, "I've got a bad feeling about this." His fingers were interlaced. He asked, "This Sakura, how would you describe her?" As Naruto reddened and picked at his cheek. "Well," Jiraiya nods, "and she's beautiful, smart, and knows a lot of things I don't," he said. However, he sighed, shaking his head. "She seems to only have eyes for Sasuke. Every time I ask her out she shoots me down, then goes right around and asks Sasuke for the same thing, only he shoots her down as well. Then she gets angry and socks me in the face, not to mention she always agrees with whatever Sasuke says, even if I don't think it's a good idea, and she punches me and calls me an idiot," he complained as he rested his head on his hand. He said, "I don't get her, what's so great about Sasuke anyway?" As a drop of perspiration trickled down Jiraiya's neck. He saw the similarities between the two and thought, "Crap, this is just like when I chased after Tsunade." Anyway, back to the matter at hand, he uttered, needing to shake off the nostalgia for funk that was beginning to fade from his memory. Asking, "What have you planned for your fights?" Naruto folded his arms and thought for a moment. "Well, given what you told me about the Hyuga, I can't match Neji with Taijutsu. Not when my skills are still lacking. So far I haven't seen him perform any ninjutsu, but that was only because he fought Hinata with their clan's Taijutsu. But given that they can shut down chakra points, close quarters combat would be out of the question. My best bet is to trick him up with some ninjutsu, and try restraining him to get some physical damage on him." He thought to himself. "Looks like all that reading is starting to pay off, you're analyzing your opponent and planning accordingly. As for your ninjutsu, don't worry, I have a few moves I can teach you, plus a few elemental ones. Now that you have the first stage of wind and earth chakra down, the water jutsu will have to come later," he said with a nod. He asked, closing his eyes to focus, "Now, what can you tell me about your other opponents?" Naruto closed his eyes. "Well, if I win against Neji, my next opponent will have to be either Sasuke or Gaara. I know what Sasuke can do. He has the Sharingan, but not like Kakashi's. Last I saw I think he only had 2 tomo in each eye. He has the fire style jutsu, bushy brows fighting style, his lion's barrage, and better taijutsu than me. But seeing as Kakashi is training him, no doubt he will have some new moves," Naruto said as Jiraiya nodded. "Good, and the other one?" "Gaara, I don't know much about him. But he used sand like a weapon, it protected him from bushy brows attacks. I think I recall someone saying it was his perfect defense," Naruto recalled. As Naruto blinked, Jiraiya remarked, "From what I remember, he is the son of the 4th Kazekage. Although not much information is available for some reason. He said, he's the son of a 4th. Just like me?" And Jiraiya gave him a nod. "Strange coincidence, huh? Anyway, I've heard of the sand jutsu, his father uses a gold dust variation, but all of them stem from the earth element. Normally you can beat earth style with lightning style," Jiraiya said with a brow raised. He took out a scroll and drew the 5 elements in a circle, saying, "Right, I forgot to teach you that part. See, each element is stronger against one element but weak against another. Fire beats wind but is weak against water, wind beats lightning but is weak to fire, lightning beats earth but is weak against wind, earth beats water but is weak to lightning. You understand?" Jiraiya asked with a nod. Jiraiya nodded and Naruto said, "I see. Which means Kakashi Sensei will teach Sasuke a lightning-based jutsu, right? More than likely, but that will give you an advantage. Your wind jutsu would be stronger against Sasuke's lightning. But, seeing as he is a Uchiha, he would naturally be born with fire chakra. And then your wind jutsu would be defeated, even make his fire jutsu stronger, he said while Naruto was blinking. Jiraiya sighed and he asked, wait, my wind makes his fire stronger? How does that work? Naruto nodded and he said, okay, you know when you start a campfire, you blow on the embers to make them bigger? Well, it's the same with wind and fire jutsus. You would be fueling his fire jutsu and then he'd have a bigger stronger jutsu against you. But you also have water chakra, so you can counter that. But once again, his lightning would turn your water jutsu against you. Jiraiya clarified as Naruto nodded. So, I'm a perfect fit for Sasuke then, Jiraiya arched an eyebrow at Naruto. Jiraiya nodded as he spoke, my wind and water can fight his fire and lightning. Anyway, while the Gaara kid might have a powerful defense, it doesn't mean that it's not perfect. There are bound to be cracks somewhere, you just need to figure it out, Jiraiya said while Naruto nodded. Okay, so once you manage to beat either of them, who are the others? Well, there's Shikamaru, Shino, that girl with the fan, some puppet dude and the other sound guy. Shikamaru I know, because he and I were friends back at the academy with Choji and Kiba. He may look like a slacker, but he was always smarter than the rest of us. He can control his shadow and can use it to immobilize his opponent as he did to that sound chick, Naruto said with a nod. The Nara clan's shadow possession technique is not an easy thing to overcome, but not impossible if you know what to look out for, Jiraiya said. Then there's Shino, he's on Hinata's team. He uses bugs as his main weapon. He used them against that Zaku guy, to plug up the air holes he had in his hands. But apparently, he suffered prior damage in the forest, and one of his arms blew off during the fight with Shino, Naruto laughed. I mean, I know it wasn't fully Shino's fault but, yeesh. Unlike in the anime, Zaku's arm blew off in the manga instead of just going limp. Ah, he's from the Aburame clan, a clan that specializes in using insects. They have a special symbiosis with their insects, allowing the insect to live just under their host's skin, Jiraiya said while Naruto was trembling. That's a little bit creepy, man, Jiraiya nodded in agreement with Naruto. Yeah, because of this, the Aburame clan usually keep to themselves. Due to how the civilians and fellow shinobi view them, you should know that feeling, Jiraiya said while Naruto was looking down. Being all too aware of the villagers' opinions. In any case, you need to be careful when facing them. They have a variety of insects they can use, and their Kakaichu beetles are their most prominent. They can overwhelm their opponent and eat their chakra, Jiraiya said as Naruto nodded. So direct contact with Shino would be out of the question. Shino is still a leaf shinobi, so I don't want to hurt his insects too much. Might need to come up with a method to keep them off me, Naruto thought. But I'll come back to that later. The next one is the girl with the fan, Temari I think. She has wind chakra like me, cause she blew away Tenten's weapons like they were nothing, Naruto said while attempting to recall her given name. Temari, she's the daughter of the Kazekage, the oldest of the three. Which also means the one with the puppet is Kankuro, the second child of the Kazekage. Jiraiya said through his network. Right, Temari was able to defeat Tenten pretty easily, so she has to be very strong and smart. She was also able to stop Bushy Brow's kick quickly. She had a fan that had circles on it. When she opened the fan, the wind got stronger. I think she was using it to amplify her wind chakra, like what Asuma Sensei does with his combat knives, Naruto thought to himself. Good insight kid, if you knew a fire style jutsu you could turn that wind against her. But seeing as you don't, you'd need to be careful going at her. Now, how about the last two? Jiraiya asked while Naruto was pondering. Well, the other one, Kankuro, could use puppets. Which means he can have them attack me while he stays at a distance. And his puppet was disguised as him, so it might be hard to tell which is the real one. Naruto murmured. I still think it's cheating using a puppet. Hey, whatever can be used to amass victory is essential to a shinobi. Puppets are just one method. It's interesting that all the sand ninjas in the tournament so far are all the children of the fourth Kazekage, odd, Jiraiya said as he reflected. I can see 1 or 2 family members on a team, but 3. He said to himself as Naruto furrowed his brow. Jiraiya shook his head and Naruto asked, What's up, pervy sage? Naruto scratched his chin and said, Nothing, and stop calling me. Never mind. What about the last one? If I recall, he's another sound ninja like the ones Shikamaru, Shino and Choji fought. All of them used sound as a weapon. He had some sort of gauntlet that he used against Choji to knock him out in one blow. Something about the human body having 70% water, and that water transmits sound. Naruto attempted to recall the battle while Jiraiya nodded. It's true, believe it or not, sound travels faster in water than air. Because the water molecules are packed tighter together when he used that sound attack on your friend, it was more effective on his body, Jiraiya said with a nod. Naruto thought to the boy, so, now that you know all your potential opponents, what are you going to do? Well, I know some of their skills, but not all of them. I first should focus on a strategy to beat Neji. Then after him, Sasuke or Gaara should be my next focus, depending on who I face next. Then on however wins the next rounds between Shino, Kankuro, Temari, Shikamaru or Dosu. One of the advantages I have is I can watch all their fights, seeing as my match is first, Naruto said with a nod. Naruto was looking at the man very confusedly when he said, but it also puts you at a disadvantage, because they will see your skills and tactics as well. Thus they can plan around your plan, so you will need to plan around the plan that they're planning around your plan. Huh? Jiraiya explained, it's complicated, you just try not to get caught up in their plan. Show them some of your Uzumaki unpredictability, to a bewildered Naruto, who nodded. Alright, Naruto replied, returning to his reading of the Uzumaki history scroll. Naruto thought about how to defeat Neji and remarked, but, Neji is not going to be easy to beat. Rookie of the Year, a powerful doujutsu, and an apparent prodigy. I've got my work cut out for me. Jiraiya remarked, you know. You could ask someone for help, as Naruto arched an eyebrow. Jiraiya held up a finger and Naruto bemoaned, who? I doubt Bushy or Brows Sensei, Guy, Tenten, Bushy Brows, or any of the Hyuga are going to be willing to tell me anything about how to beat Neji. Besides, I doubt any of them would even talk to me, Naruto said. Naruto stared as the little hamster in his brain ran around the treadmill. Ah, but you do know one person that might give you an insight. Sure, she lost, but she will be your best source of information on Neji, Jiraiya said. Until at last. Oh. Right. Hinata. She's a Hyuga. Jiraiya laughed, way to state the obvious, kid. Jiraiya shrugged and Naruto countered, but she's a Hyuga, so I doubt she'd be willing to tell me anything about her family's secrets. Naruto raised an eyebrow at Jiraiya's suggestion. You never know until you try. Go out and find her, she might be willing to help beat Neji. Jiraiya shook his head and Naruto said, but why don't I just send out a shadow cone? Out of the question. You've been using the clones too much for today, one more and I think you might just pass out. Plus, that would be rude. She is a young lady whose honor you are fighting for, after all. Not someone you're asking chakra tips from. The least you could do is go see her in person. Jiraiya replied while Naruto was staring at the with a whatever you say, pervy sage. Naruto stood up, put on his jacket again, and headed out to locate Hinata. Jiraiya, on the other hand, grinned while observing his pupil. It's in your best interest. In order to better understand his opponent and mentally prepare for his match, he needs a break. No clansman would divulge any clan secrets, as far as I'm aware, not even Hinata. Even if my assumption is correct, she harbors feelings for him. However, it would be beneficial to learn about Neji's side of the story and perhaps begin examining other fish in the sea. He's got the same kind of infatuation with this Sakura that I did with Tsunade. The pattern I'm noticing indicates that, if this continues, he will become like me. The child deserves to live a happy life. Looking back on his life, he thought, the life I never had. He wondered if Tsunade would have given him a chance. Konoha Medical Center. As usual, the Konoha General Hospital was full of patients, from the common aches and pains of the village residents to shinobi who had returned from missions. Additionally, a number of Chunin exam participants were presently receiving medical attention for their wounds there. Like Hinata Hyuga and Rock Lee. Because of her ties to the Hyuga clan, Hinata was given a private room and Rock Lee was assigned to the shinobi ward. For this reason, as of right now. Asking the receptionist, what do you mean I can't see Hinata? Was Naruto. Glancing over the list, she said, as I told you before, we were given explicit instructions not to allow anyone that isn't family or friend into Miss Hinata's room. Looks like you're not on the list, she stated, giving Naruto a fierce look. But I need to see her, it's important. If it was truly important, you would have been permitted by either Lord Hyuga or her sensei. But seeing as you were neither her teammate, sensei or a family relative, I cannot allow you to visit her, she said while Naruto complained. Irrational regulations. Naruto moaned, crossing his arms. He heard someone say, "Oh, Naruto, is that you?" And turned to see Kurenai Yuhi holding a bouquet. She nodded and he said, "Hey, Kurenai-sensei, are you here to visit Hinata?" "Indeed, she is one of my pupils after all." "What are you doing here if I might ask, shouldn't you be training for the finals?" She asked with a wink. He pointed at the middle. Aged nurse, who flared her nostrils and repositioned her glasses, saying, "I am, but I kind of need Hinata's help. But this stuffy nurse isn't letting me see her." Kurenai looked at the boy with a scowl, and as I've told you before, I cannot simply allow anyone to visit Miss Hinata. Not without proper authorization from her father. She said to the boy. Curious, I never thought that Naruto would pay her a visit. Although I am aware of her crush on the young boy, I got the impression that he was unaware of her presence. Not that he is to blame. She has become a bit of a wallflower due to her shyness. Kurenai shrugged and wagered, most likely he's come to ask her for some insight on how to fight Neji. She put a hand on his shoulder and told herself, oh well, maybe it would help her see him. Let me handle this, Naruto. Kurenai turned to face the nurse and asked the young boy. I'm Hinata's sensei. I can vouch for Naruto that he will not cause any trouble for Hinata, she stated to the nurse. Excellent, she remarked while jotting it down on a clipboard. Kurenai gave a nod. But if I hear that he's causing trouble, I will have him removed immediately, she declared. She turned to face Naruto and said, understood, she said, come along, and Naruto nodded before giving the nurse a little smug grin and trailing behind Kurenai. He said, thanks, Kurenai-sensei, I appreciate this, and Kurenai gave him a nod. Naruto nodded and she said, it's okay, I take it you were here to ask Hinata about her cousin, Neji? Yeah, if I want to beat him and avenge what he said about Hinata, I need all the info I can get about him. I figure since she fought him, she might be able to help? Naruto argued with Kurenai. It's a sound idea, but you must be aware that as a Hyuga clan member, she can't divulge much in the way of her clan's techniques, she said with a nod of approval. He said, I guess, but anything is better than nothing, while Kurenai fixed the boy's gaze. He is not the same as the preliminaries. What could have caused this difference? As she escorted Naruto to Hinata's room, she thought to herself. She stopped the boy, thinking, but still, I wonder how Hinata will react to having her crush suddenly visit her in the hospital. Would be rather entertaining. Kurenai-sensei? He inquired as she gave Naruto the flowers. Naruto arched an eyebrow at her. Here, give these to Hinata when you see her, she said. He said, why? While Kurenai laughed. You're going to visit someone in the hospital, it's customary to bring them a gift. Well, gift, she countered, causing Naruto to blink. Kurenai gave the boy a worried look and then nodded. Is it? Huh. I didn't know that. Then again, I've never really been that sick to have anyone visit me. Or had anyone visiting. Would she even like them? Naruto questioned. When Hinata said, well, trust me, Hinata will like them. Especially from you, Naruto arched an eyebrow. She sighed and he asked, why me? She said, just trust me, and make sure you tell her they're from you, and he arched an eyebrow. Believe in me, she reassured him as she ushered him into Hinata's room, which was being watched over by 2 Hyuga clan members. They bowed in greeting, Kurenai. San, then turned to face Naruto. One of the Hyuga guards glared at the boy with pale eyes, what is he doing here? A scowl that Naruto had grown accustomed to. As they exchanged glances, she informed them, he's with me, he's a friend of Hinata's and wishes to see her, fully aware that the boy in front of them was the 9-tailed fox's Jinchuriki. The Hyuga guard looked at the boy in front of them and said, forgive us, but we were given strict instructions to not let anyone other than approved staff, Lord Hisashi, or your team into Lady Hinata's room. Kurenai looked at each of them and nodded. I can assure you he will not cause Hinata any trouble, I will be watching over them the entire exchange, Kurenai said. Excellent, feel free to enter. They said, opening the door for the couple to enter. Hinata was absorbed in watching the clouds pass by through the window of her hospital room. Ever since her fight with her cousin Neji, she had been confined to this hospital. Her internal organs had been damaged by the injuries she had received from her cousin, and she might have died if he had delivered the killing blow. Fortunately, the doctors had informed her that she should heal completely as long as she avoided doing anything too demanding to prevent her internal injuries from opening up again. Her father, though stern in his manner, had been told she was in excellent hands. He did, however, express his disappointment that she was defeated by a branch family member. Since her uncle's death years ago, her father had grown emotionally distant from her, assuming she was stronger and fit to take the helm of the clan. Since she was unable to defeat her younger sister, it was no secret that the other elders did not think she was fit to be the leader of the clan. It doesn't matter to them that Hinata was unable to bring herself to hurt Hanabi, her younger sister. She vowed to keep Hanabi safe in memory of their late mother, who passed away soon after Hanabi was born. She was the only person who brought their late mother to mind. However, the elders began preparing for Hanabi to succeed them as the head of the Hyuga clan since she was unable to harm her sister and thus failed to establish her worth. Additionally, the agenda would undoubtedly be further advanced by her cousin's defeat. The worst thing about it all was that she failed in front of her crush, who likely felt the same way about her as everyone else. No, Naruto. Kun would never believe that. Despite Neji and Kiba's encouragement to give up, he encouraged me to keep going. One of the many reasons I look up to him is that he never gives up and never lets anyone put him down. She grinned as she gazed out the window, thinking about the boy she was crushing on, even if he doesn't see me. As the door opened, she heard her guards say, "Lady Hinata? You have visitors," and she turned to see her sensei, perhaps Kiba or Shino. She was correct about the first person, though her crush was the last person she anticipated. Clutching a bouquet. "Hey, Hinata. How are you doing?" he exclaimed, grinning. Hinata blushed instantly at the unexpected visit from the last person she had anticipated seeing in her room. Naruto. Kun. She exclaimed, flinging her arms wildly as she struggled to formulate a coherent sentence. She barked, attempting to cover her face. What are you doing here? Well, of course I came to see you, Naruto said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. However, Hinata misunderstood, reading the words as, "I came to see you, Hinata," in a more alluring way. Her heart began to beat more quickly and her face turned red as a result. She stammered as she said, why? You. Me. I. Kurenai coughed into her hand, and he stopped, saying, "Oh, by the way, Kurenai." "Oh, I mean I got you these," he said, extending the bouquet. As he gave her the flowers, Hinata, who was flushed deeply, said, "I was told it's customary to give a get." "Well, gift, I hope that's okay?" Naruto was looking at her much more seductively than before. Her face was getting redder by the moment she managed to mumble, "N. Naruto. Kun. F. Lowers. Me? Hey, are you okay, Hinata? Your face is getting red," Naruto asked, putting his hand absent-mindedly on her forehead, causing her heart to race. N. Naruto, Kun, I. She exclaimed as dizziness and lightheadedness set in. As Kurenai watched her student stumble over her crush, she secretly laughed at the scene in front of her. She had been depressed since the match, but she knew she should probably stop before reopening her wounds. And whenever the boy himself was around or the subject of Naruto was brought up, she always appeared to be happier. She approached Hinata and gently touched her, saying, "Okay, calm down." She whispered into Hinata's ear, "Naruto wanted to come to visit, it wouldn't do you any good if you fainted now, would it?" The girl nodded and made an effort to push her anxiety aside. Hi, Kurenai. Sensei, Hinata uttered while making an effort to meet Naruto's gaze. She said, Thank you for coming to visit N. Naruto. Kun, and Naruto grinned and nodded. Hinata blushed and nodded in response to his question. "No problem, how are you by the way? That fight with your cousin was pretty serious, are you going to be okay?" he asked. "Why? Yes, the doctor said I should recover if I take it easy for the next few weeks." It's nothing too serious, I just have avoided unnecessary stress for a while and unfortunately, won't be on active duty for a while. T. Thank you for the concern, she said with a sigh. With a shake of her head, Hinata responded, that's good to hear, you were pretty awesome out there, Naruto said. Naruto shook his head and she uttered, B. But I lost, I must have looked pathetic being beaten up like that. With his signature smile, he said, nah, you didn't back down and you never gave up, that makes you pretty awesome in my books. As Hinata flushed and felt her heart skip a beat. She grew uneasy at the close proximity as Naruto sighed and sat on the tiny chair beside her bed. Okay, so the reason I came here is that I wanted to find out more about Neji. But I've been told multiple times that clan members won't give out anything to me, even if he's the one that put you here. Naruto replied with a nod. Well, I should ask this instead, Hinata, a nervous Naruto uttered, something Hinata had never heard him say before. He said, Neji's strong, isn't he? And she nodded solemnly. Hi, she uttered as Naruto bowed his head. Yes, that makes sense. I nodded solemnly. Her tone changed to one of shyness, B. But you might be able to win, she answered. He questioned, why do you think that? As Hinata started to fidget with her fingers. Because. She uttered, unable to find the bravery to voice her opinions. She glanced at Kurenai, who gave her an encouraging glance, then looked back at the curious Uzumaki. B. Because, when you cheered me on, I felt like I became stronger. I even started liking myself more, and that was thanks to you cheering me on. It may not seem like I've changed to others, but I feel like I've changed, and it's all thanks to you, Naruto. Kun. She stated to the boy while rubbing the back of his skull. He grinned and said, all thanks to me? Thanks, I guess I am pretty influential, huh? Kurenai rolled her eyes and smiled playfully. Standing in the corner, she said nothing. He spoke abruptly, but, as Kurenai and Hinata turned to face the boy. Why? He inquired. Hinata questioned, Why what? As Naruto shook his head. He briefly forgot Kurenai was in the room and said, why do you think I helped you get better? I mean, sure I look super strong and stuff, but that's just a facade. His mind went back to the genjutsu trick a week ago and how he thought he had hurt Sakura. It's an Act 1 put on because I'm so frustrated with failing all the time. I failed the exam 3 times trying to do a simple clone jutsu, I had terrible chakra control and... With his head down, he said. And I don't think things ahead and I could get someone hurt, people I care about. I just don't see how I can be someone that inspires you, before Hinata boldly put her hand on top of his. That's not true. She exclaimed, displaying an unaccustomed level of confidence, drawing Naruto's attention to her. The fact that you never give up, never let anyone put you down, is inspiring. You have this amazing strength to get back up and keep trying. In my eyes, you're not a failure. You're a really strong and cool person, Naruto. Kun, she said as Naruto looked at her and laughed. Hinata blushed at Naruto's statement, thanks, Hinata, I needed to hear that. And don't worry, I'll make Neji pay for what he did to you. He had no right to say all those things. The guy's a total jerk. Kurenai laughed softly in the background as she became agitated and shot off her hand as if it were a hot plate, leaving him a little perplexed. She attempted to defend her cousin, saying, Thank you, but It's okay, Naruto. Kun, Neji. San is not a bad guy, really. Hinata shook his head as Naruto continued, but he insulted you and tried to put you down. Heck, if it wasn't for the examiners and the sensei he could have killed you. Naruto arched a brow at her statement, I know, but the thing is. I think he has a reason to be angry at me. Kurenai shook his head and he said, What possible reason could he have for hating you, aren't you two family or something? Naruto looked at Kurenai, perplexed, then at Hinata. It's not as simple as you think, Naruto, the Hyuga clan has some tension between the main and branch members, and it partially revolves around a certain practice, Kurenai said. Hinata? He questioned, causing her to bow her head. As Naruto grew interested, she explained, why? You see, there is a certain tradition within the Hyuga clan, where members of the branch family are given a certain seal. She nodded, and he asked, a seal? It's called the bird cage seal. It's a seal that is placed on members of the branch family. It is placed on the forehead and is supposed to seal away the Byakugan upon the person's death, to keep the Byakugan secrets safe, however, she said with a scowl on her face. Naruto questioned, a sick feeling in the pit of his stomach, however, what? With shame, Hinata recalled how her father had used the seal on her uncle years earlier. The main family have been known to use the seal to keep the branch family from disobeying them, she said. What? That is awful. Why would they harm their own family members in such a way? Hinata hung her head, and Naruto recoiled at the idea. Kurenai cut Hinata off, seeing that she was feeling very embarrassed about her family's customs. It's rather complicated, Naruto, Kurenai said. Every clan has traditions and customs, some of which are merely more extreme than others. Naruto shook his head and she said, you mustn't judge them on that. But if the birdcage seal is supposed to keep the Byakugan secrets safe, then why doesn't every member of the Hyuga have it? Kurenai sighed and he asked. Once more, this is a clan issue that only an insider could comprehend. But your point is valid. Hinata nodded as she continued, most likely it was intended to be a safeguard, but the main branch found other uses for it. Naruto accepted this information without question since he sensed a seal being applied to him and the Hyuga branch members. However, whereas their mark restricted their freedom, his mark kept him apart from everyone else. All right, I see that. However, why is Neji working against you? Naruto asked, you're not the one who put it on him. Hinata sighed. A long time ago, Kumogakure and Konohagakure signed a peace treaty following the conclusion of the Third Great War. At the same time as my third birthday, the head ninja of Kumogakure was present at the event. But there was an incident, she hung her head and said. I was kidnapped by the head ninja from the Cloud Village, and in his attempt to rescue me, my father killed him. What? But why would he do that? He was supposed to be signing a treaty, not that. With great confusion, Naruto inquired. Naruto, many villages, notably Kumogakure, have greatly converted the Hyuga bloodline. They have tried before to take it and its secrets. As Naruto looked on, Kurenai said, it was obvious that it was a ruse just to get access to the village and kidnap Hinata, so they could study her bloodline. He questioned, but then, what does this have to do with Neji? As Hinata let out a sigh. In the words of my father, Kumogakure asserted that they were unaware of this mission and charged us with assaulting their envoy. They asked that my father be put to death and that his body be turned over to them in exchange for preventing a possible conflict. As Naruto appeared irate, Hinata spoke. That is untrue. When one of their men attempted to kidnap you, they had no right to ask that question. Furious that something like this occurred, Naruto yelled. But hold on, isn't your dad still living? So how did? Hinata looked away and hung her head. The branch family had a twin brother named Lord Hisashi. Hisashi Hyuga, the father of Neji. Naruto's eyes grew wide as Kurenai explained. The Hyuga were able to trick Kumo by posing as Hisashi and sacrificing him while saying he was the one who killed the Cloud Ninja because they were similar. Additionally, the Byakugan would perish with him along with the birdcage seal, preventing Kumogakure from accessing the Hyuga bloodline. But why was his death necessary? Kurenai lowered her gaze as Naruto argued, it still doesn't make sense. She said, you have to understand Naruto, Konoha was still vulnerable after both the Third Great War and Nine Tails attack, to Naruto's tense response. The Land of Lightning would have used the incident as justification to launch a war against Konoha if we hadn't complied. That Konoha would have survived was not guaranteed given the state of affairs at the time. However, Kurenai clarified, Hisashi Hyuga stopped a war between the Land of Fire and the Land of Lightning by giving his life. That's the reason Neji despises me. I'm always reminding him that my father is still alive and his father passed away. As Naruto gave a solemn nod, Hinata spoke. I see, grasping the area of his shirt where the 9 tails were hidden, Naruto spoke. Dude. I can kind of understand Neji's situation. His father, marked with something he never asked for or desired, died to put an end to a war. Helps me understand that people are more than what's right in front of me. It simply gets me to wondering what might have happened if my father hadn't given his life to thwart the 9 tails. And perhaps if he had been alive, could he have prevented the attempt or at the very least forced the Cloud Village to retreat? As Naruto considered the ifs and what ifs, he asked himself. So I hope you understand why you shouldn't be so harsh on Neji. It's not his fault, Naruto sighed and Hinata inquired. Naruto said, clenching his fist, I know. But it's not your fault either, Hinata. Hinata looked up as Naruto spoke. I understand what it was like for him to lose his father. It's a mess. Nevertheless, that still doesn't give him the right to disparage other people, particularly you. Then a fire raged in his eyes as he turned to face her. Had he been a genius, he would have recognized the opportunity to assist you in improving the clan. Are those cage seals tolerable to you? She shook her head and he asked. Then he ought to have assisted you in rising, not brought you down. The Hyuga clan could then be improved by you. Eliminate the seal and the pointless separation between main and branch. And what's this? I swear to you that I will assist you in changing your clan's foolish behavior once I become Hokage. Since I never give up. I never give up. That's my ninja way. He exclaimed, pointing to Hinata with his fist. His gaze met Hinata's eyes directly, causing her face to flush red. She was attracted to the boy more than ever because she thought he was more driven and inspirational than ever, and her crush on him grew bigger by the moment. Gratitude. The boy smiled as she twiddled her fingers and said, Naruto-kun. Hinata, no problem at all. I appreciate your insight. I came here hoping to learn more about Neji, how to defeat him, and perhaps even gain some understanding of him. And I believe I now know a little bit more about him because of you. Now that I know I'm going to win, he exclaimed, grinning as usual. Hinata nodded and grinned. She said, why? You're welcome, Naruto-kun, and Naruto laughed. I should get going. I appreciate your advice. It was helpful. Hey, I had a great conversation with you. Do you think it would be alright if I stopped by more frequently? He questioned as a startled Hinata struggled in vain to think of a reply. Luckily, her sensei responded on her behalf. Naruto, Hinata would adore that. Naruto nodded as she said, I'll talk with the head nurse and give you access later. Thank you, Kurenai. Sensei. I should be heading out now. Sweet. Thank you, said Naruto, turning to leave but pausing briefly before facing Hinata again. You know, I always thought you were kind of weird. As Kurenai debated whether to slap Hinata's or Naruto's forehead, Hinata felt devastated and Naruto said something inadvertent. But, as Hinata became alert, he said abruptly, but. He grinned and exclaimed, I think you're kind of awesome, and I like people like you. As Hinata felt her heart race, her face flush red, and she quickly passed out. He finds me attractive. As Hinata fainted, she thought to herself. Hinata. Hello, Hinata. Are you alright? Rushing up to the girl, Naruto began shaking her to check on her safety and yelled. Kurenai, relieved to see her pupil smile after such a long time, had to bite her lip to contain her laughter as she observed Hinata's carefree smile. She could see how having more interactions with Naruto would benefit her, and she wondered what else she could do to encourage the bashful Hyuga to come out of her shell. Afterwards at the training field, Jiraiya was editing his most recent manuscript while sitting beneath the tree. He had the skeleton of a Makeout Paradise sequel written, but his publisher was pressuring him for the next one. However, he also needed to strike a balance between his obligations to his godson, his network maintenance, his role as a leaf shinobi, and his duties as a toad sage. In relation to that, he noticed Naruto approaching him while keeping his hands in his pockets and appearing to be thinking back on all he had discovered. Hey, kid, welcome back. How is the heiress going? He asked, to which Naruto nodded as he snapped out of his contemplation. What? Yes, it was really educational. Neji lost his father in such a way, so I can kind of understand why he's upset. It doesn't make what he said any less incorrect, Budi understand. If political nonsense caused my dad's death, I would also be furious. However, Jiraiya nodded and he asked, but then again, Dad would have gladly made the same sacrifice, wouldn't he? He demonstrated that during the Nine Tails escape years ago. Being a Hokage means risking your life for the sake of others. It goes beyond simply being the strongest or smartest person. That quality has been demonstrated by all previous Hokage, but it is not the only quality. Naruto nodded and Jiraiya said, your dream is to become Hokage, but that doesn't mean you have to throw away your life recklessly. I see. Naruto nodded and he said, well, I guess you want to get back to training, right? Yes, but there's something else before that, he stated, causing Jiraiya to furrow her brow. Hinata said that I encouraged her and helped her become better because I never give up. Though I'm still not sure what she meant, for some reason that made me feel happy. Pervy Sage, do you have any idea what that's about? Jiraiya smirked at his lack of understanding. Jiraiya responded, oh, it's just you'll understand when you're older, as Naruto sensed a vein in his forehead start to appear. What the heck does that mean, you pervy bastard? Jiraiya laughed and closed his book as Naruto yelled. Nothing, let's resume our training now. With just 1 week remaining before the finals, I believe it's high time you picked up some ninjutsu skills, he remarked, causing Naruto to lose his temper and appear giddy with anticipation. Indeed. Fresh jutsu. What lessons will you impart to me? The old wise man smiled and he yelled. Well, I can teach you a wind and earth jutsu to increase your offense and defense, and Gamariki can teach you a water jutsu for range, he said, his expression darkening at the memory of the one annoying toad. He said, tossing him a scroll, there are a few techniques I think would fit your certain. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he picked up the scroll and unfolded it to reveal its contents. What? Examining the scroll, he asked, another clone jutsu? Indeed, but not just any kind of clone jutsu. When you combine that with another jutsu, I believe you will have a significant advantage over your opponent. Neji won't know what hit him. As Naruto went over the scroll, Jiraiya spoke. He asked, think this will give me an edge over Neji? Jiraiya nodded in response. He smiled and rolled up the scroll while putting his fingers together. Without a doubt, he said. So, what are we still holding out for? Clone Shadow Jutsu. Encircled by massive craters, Sasuke Uchiha stood in the center of the rocky training ground. There were tiny burn marks on his palm as he held his left arm. Since he released himself from the hospital a week ago, he had been training constantly and was aware that he was running out of time to get ready for the finals. Not that a master like him would find it difficult. The moment Kakashi showed him the Taijutsu style, his Sharingan had already imitated it, and since then, his chakra control had greatly increased. His attention was now on mastering the move that would help him defeat the ninja from Gaara's sand village. A move known as the Chidori, in which he penetrates Gaara's sand defense with his lightning chakra. Even with his Sharingan, the technique was proving difficult to master. To pierce his target, he needed to keep the flow of his chakra flowing, form it into lightning, and concentrate it into a single point. With a grunt, Sasuke reached for the lightning, hurried past a stone column, and pushed it toward his intended victim. He slammed the jutsu into the earth column and exclaimed, Chidori. His arm passed through the stone and he pulled it out, leaving a sizable crater in the column as the lightning struck around his palm and the stone started to crumble. He held his wrist and let out long, slow breaths. While keeping an eye on Sasuke's advancement and making sure the curse mark on his neck didn't flare up, Kakashi stood off to the side. Anko and the third Hokage didn't really know everything there was to know about the curse mark, but the seal he put on Sasuke ought to hold both it and Orochimaru's influence. As far as they could tell, it appeared to only confer increased power upon the user. However, in Anko, thus far, it has only made the subject more and more uncomfortable. All they knew was that it was essential to Orochimaru's research, but they were unsure of its precise capabilities. However, it's not good that he's going after Sasuke. One of the 3 legendary Sannin is Orochimaru. I doubt I could ever defeat one of them. Maybe he's using the curse mark to use power to entice Sasuke. Itachi, his older brother, is the only thing that seems to concern Sasuke. The other is power. He paused, staring at the boy with a deep fire in his eyes. I hope I can at least guide him in a way that won't cause him to abandon his comrades and follow the will of fire to become a shinobi that will protect the hidden leaf. But not the one he perceived through Naruto's eyes. His fire is filled with hatred, unlike Naruto. He looked up at the sky, thinking to himself, hatred for his brother and hatred for myself, being the only survivor. I need to contain this. He thought to himself, Sensei. What would you do here? Just before he saw Sasuke power up another Chidori and slam it into the stones. The boy collapsed to one knee, panting heavily. Glaring at his sensei, Sasuke said, Hey, take it easy Sasuke. I told you that 2 uses were your limit. Kakashi cautioned. The Chidori is not a child's toy. The amount of chakra and concentration it takes is much more than what you're used to. At this stage, 2 uses are your limit, Kakashi said with a sigh. And what happens if I use it more than twice? He inquired, experiencing a slight numbness in his arm. There is no third. If you try to force the jutsu, it won't work and your chakra will be reduced to 0. And remember, I'm only teaching you this technique so that you can use it against Gaara's sand. He's much more powerful than anyone you've faced so far. And it's only to be used to protect your comrades, Kakashi said with a scowl. When Kakashi's visible eyes strayed back to his childhood, he asked, an A rank assassination jutsu is used to protect? To Obito and Rin. Making sure they never get hurt again is sometimes the best way to protect them, Kakashi said menacingly as Sasuke furrowed his brow. With a glare, Sasuke resumed his training, saying, doesn't matter, all I need to do is beat Gaara, then I'm one step closer to him. Kakashi sighed. He's equally stubborn as Naruto, he remarked, letting his thoughts briefly stray to his other pupil. Speaking of, I wonder how Naruto's doing. I can't imagine how Ebisu is dealing with his personality. I just hope they got along by now. In the interim, the waterfall area. After visiting Hinata for about 2 days, Naruto was now totally focused on mastering the new jutsus that Jiraiya had prepared to teach him. Since then, Naruto had also succeeded in finishing the water chakra transformation's initial phase and was concentrating on mastering the new jutsus. He was currently learning 2 more jutsu that Jiraiya had planned for Naruto to learn, as well as wind style, great breakthrough, earth style, mud wall, and water style, water bullet. The original jutsu was named wind style, great breakthrough, and it had the power to completely destroy anything in its path. The wind-based chakra that Naruto possesses would make the jutsu effective against projectile attacks. The user of the second jutsu, earth style, mud wall, could construct an earthly wall that would serve as a barrier against attacks. However, a more inventive mind might also utilize it to contain adversary shinobi. Water style. Water bullet was the final elemental jutsu. It was a ranged jutsu that transformed the user's stomach chakra into a stream of water or a concentrated burst of pressurized water. It may come in more than one variety, depending on the user. It was Gamariki who was teaching him, which wasn't going so well because of how frequently Naruto and Gamariki disagreed. But the learning curve was being halved because of the shadow clones. However, it involved more than just learning the hand signs by heart. He also needed to master controlling the amount of chakra required for any kind of jutsu. This was what Naruto had learned the first time he tried to use the Great Breakthrough Jutsu and failed miserably, managing only a light breeze due to insufficient chakra. The same could be said of his attempt at the mud wall, where he accidentally knocked himself off his feet by using too much chakra in the jutsu. But in a matter of days, his clones were able to determine the appropriate chakra control required for the wind and earth jutsu because of the memory trick. Naruto found the water gun technique more difficult since he had to accurately hit his target, measure the water's pressure, and transform his chakra into a water chakra. He missed the wooden targets at first, but after about the second day, he started to get the hang of it. The moving target part turned out to be more devious because his clones were told to position themselves to be as difficult to hit as possible. That's not to say he wasn't getting better, though. The more clones he employed, the more insight he acquired. Another group of clones was practicing another jutsu that Jiraiya advised him to learn. Since they weren't elemental-based, they were a little bit simpler to use, and they made use of his preferred cloning jutsu. Naruto believed he had a stronger arsenal with these 2 additional jutsu to face Neji in the finals. In order to make his weapons sharper, he also channeled his primary nature chakra into them. Alright, let's give it another go. Asuma demonstrated to me how to channel my wind chakra into the blade of a kunai knife, a Naruto clone uttered. The chakra initially came out shaky like the first time, but it quickly started to sharpen, if only slightly. Following Asuma's guidance, visualize severing his chakra and massaging the 2 halves together. Wow, this is more difficult than I anticipated. Using Asuma Sensei blades made it much easier, Naruto remarked as he battled to form the chakra into a slender, sharp shape. While also rehearsing the move, another Naruto clone remarked, his blades are made of a special metal, remember? That's why it was easier the first time, and I don't know if you looked at poor Gama-chan, but I doubt we can afford blades made of the same metal. Yeah, especially if we plan to just throw them. They ain't cheap. exclaimed a second person while practicing mud wall jutsu in the earth style. He exclaimed, would be cool to have one though, right? Just before his earth jutsu successfully overthrew a clone. Hey. Watch it. Sorry. Yeah, think we might find one at the old Uzumaki estate? I'm not sure if we would be as fortunate to obtain the scroll again, remarked a different clone who was practicing water style, water gun jutsu with another group. Gamariki yelled, stay focused. While he and the clones were sitting on top of the water. All this talking amongst yourself is getting on my nerves. Now you clones, get back to molding your chakra to water. You only completed the first stage of water transformation, so you have to concentrate extra hard on this jutsu. Gamariki yelled as he gave the clones as the clones tried to use their chakra to hold a bowling ball the size of water in place. He yelled, and you clones. Finish up the second stage of water transformation already. It will make learning this jutsu easier. One of the clones muttered, glaring at him, man, why did we have to get this guy as our teacher? Yeah, the guy has a total stick up his butt. I heard that. Exclaimed Gamariki, while Jiraiya stood by the real Naruto, who was surrounded by multiple other clones discussing what looked like battle strategies. Jiraiya said, I've never seen anything like that before, but it looks like Gamariki is almost at his limit, before returning his focus to Naruto. As Naruto shrugged, he questioned, makes me wonder if you two can ever really get along? Naruto turned to his clones and said, maybe he's stiff, but I've dealt with worse from Sasuke. He said to the clones accompanying him, okay, so what if we try using smoke? Maybe, but the problem is his Byakugan can see right through it. If we know the hiding in mist technique, we could use that. Kakashi. Sensei couldn't see through the mist that Zabuza used back in waves, but there's no guarantee and Kakashi-sensei is busy training Sasuke, the clone said with a nod. Well, we know Neji will use the gentle fist, like what he did on Hinata. So far we haven't seen him use any other jutsu. So our best bet would be to trip him up with ninjutsu. Maybe try and trap him with the mud walls? That could work, but we also need to make sure he doesn't have any other surprises. It's been a month and he might have learned some new skills that we don't know. Then we should be prepared to counter that possibility. Huh, never thought I'd be the one to say, prepare, and counter, must be all the books we've been reading. Jiraiya sighed and shook his head, but the Narutos laughed among themselves, yeah, we're getting super smart. With a sly smile on his face, Jiraiya remarked, a genius like his father. He is not. But he has both his parents' determination. And in my opinion, that beats smarts any day, he said as he stood up. He said, okay, Naruto, grabbing Naruto's attention. Naruto nodded and he said, let's get some taijutsu practice in for today. You remember the katas I taught you? Naruto took off his orange jacket and set it down next to his mother's journal. As much as I could, you were right about the clones helping to learn the form. But I still need to build up my physical strength if I want to utilize the katas properly, he said. After 3 weeks of non-stop training, he appeared to have slightly grown in size, as evidenced by the training bandages on his hands. As Naruto assumed his beginner's stance and faced his opponent, Jiraiya remarked, well, having the basics is better than nothing at all. I don't expect you to use them against the Hyuga, but at least you won't look like a street thug to the judges. Ready, begin. With a quick fist blow to Jiraiya's head, Naruto lunged forward, but the man managed to block and dodge Naruto's leg as it lunged in for a quick kick. However, he turned the boy around, and he attempted to kick Jiraiya's face once more, barely managing to catch himself in a handstand. Nevertheless, the sage was no amateur, as he easily sidestepped Naruto's blow and threw another fist at his former face. Naruto moved quickly to close the distance, dodging and ducking Jiraiya's blows as he swung fast jabs in the man's face and dove to grab his legs. However, Jiraiya displayed his more skilled fighting style by dodging, jumping over, and dodging Naruto's attacks. Jiraiya easily parried a series of boxer-like jabs and a quick uppercut from Naruto. Even though he was aware that Naruto still had a ways to go, he thought his fighting technique had somewhat improved. Prior to adopting street thug-like techniques to subdue his opponent, Naruto used his shadow clones in his fighting style. Following 3 weeks of training under his guidance and with the shadow clones, he was now putting on a far stronger show than before. Even though he knew it wouldn't be sufficient to counter the Hyuga's more sophisticated fighting style, it was still an improvement over before. Besides, using sheer force was not the only way to win a battle. Naruto yelled, "Hiya!" as he kicked Jiraiya in the air, blocking the attack with his forearm. Jiraiya then struck Naruto in the chest with a palm strike, sending the boy flying back and hitting a tree. Naruto shook his head and said, "Ow. You're getting better, but your moves are still too easily telegraphed. You never want to let your opponent know what you're planning, and your fighting style can be an easy indicator for someone who has more experience in taijutsu than you. Try and mix in some of your unique unpredictability to throw them off their game," Jiraiya said while Naruto nodded. "Yes, indeed," he uttered as he stood up. "But like you said, going up against Neji with taijutsu will be ineffective. So why do I still need to practice?" Jiraiya held up 2 fingers and said, "Because your next opponent may not be as adept as you, remember? If you manage to beat Neji, your next opponent will either be Sasuke or Gaara. And from what you told me about Gaara, he may not have a lot of taijutsu skills. So that will be an advantage in your arsenal. Sasuke on the other hand will be more of a challenge, so polishing your skills is a good way to throw him off balance. You haven't spoken to your teammates since the exam started, correct?" he asked with a nod. Naruto nodded and he said, "Which means you have no idea what Sasuke has learned and vice versa. Remember, plan around the plan they're planning." Naruto said, "Fair enough. Oh hey, it's 4 o'clock now, right?" Jiraiya glanced up at the sun and did some math. As Naruto dispelled his clones, he asked with a knowing smile, "It would appear so to me, yeah, but what's so?" "Ah, I see. You're off to see the Hyuga girl again, aren't you?" Before fumbling with his jacket and picking up a box with a bakery symbol on it. He had discovered that he actually rather enjoyed Hinata's company ever since his visit. So he would go to Hinata to talk about anything and everything once he finished training. Hinata used to sit, listen, and laugh at the teams, missions, and practical jokes that Naruto would pull. But not in an unkind manner. She didn't talk about how great Sasuke was or make fun of him like any other girl he knew back at the academy, nor was she violent like Sakura or Ino. He wanted to spend a little more time there because he thought it was rather peaceful. "Yeah, I made a promise I would come to visit her whenever I get the chance. I'm not one to go back on my word, plus Hinata's nice to talk to, you know, once she looks at me. I still don't know why she keeps avoiding eye contact with me," he asked as Jiraiya let out a sigh. He muttered, "Kami, give me strength," and had an idea. With a nod and a spin around to run, Naruto said, "Well, enjoy your little date, I will see you back here tomorrow morning," before he stammered at his own words. He yelled, "Hey. It's not a date. I'm just visiting her." Jiraiya laughed. Pointing to the box of cinnamon rolls he had earlier bought from the bakery, he said, "Right, with a box of cinnamon rolls." "What?" "Kurenai-sensei told me she likes cinnamon rolls, and that it's common to bring a gift to a person in the hospital," Naruto stated as he left. He muttered, "Stupid old pervert," as Jiraiya made fun of him. He laughed and Naruto hurried away even faster. "Okay. Enjoy your visit, and I hope she enjoys them." Ha 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 ha. Jiraiya watched the boy walk away, his laughter dying down as Naruto got farther away. He'd mentally reviewed and assessed the boy's development over the last 3.5 weeks. He was far more skilled than before, had developed chakra nature transformation much earlier than most, and had unparalleled chakra control. The boy was gaining what he had been lacking for years, thanks to the mental trick of the shadow clones. Now he was certain the boy would defeat the Hyuga. Still, there were the other competitors. Gaara sent a child to the hospital with injuries so severe that it was thought the child would never recover and become a ninja. But that was for a later time. He did know of one medical ninja who could change that. The kid was far more willing to kill than the current Leaf Genin, which is the main point. And there was Orochimaru and his unimpressive interactions with the sand at the moment. He was aware that Naruto would require more power if he was to have any chance of surviving, regardless of what his old friend was up to. Since anger is an emotional trigger, he had tried to avoid bringing it up as much as he could, but with the remaining time, they were at a loss for what to do. Gazing up at the sky, he thought to himself, "I need to get the kid to draw out the 9 tails power. It's the only option left." He said to himself, "Minato, you put that thing in your son for a reason. I just hope it was a good one," and began to move in the direction of the Hokage's tower. He teleported away in a swirl of leaves, saying, "But first, I need to see the old man. See if he can help decipher the lost scroll. It may be the edge that a snake bastard would never expect." Hinata's room, Konoha General Health Center. Naruto recalled his D. rank missions while sitting next to Hinata's bed, saying, "So then we had to take these dogs on a walk, and I decided to take this biggest dog." When he related the story, the Hyuga girl laughed at him. He laughed, and Hinata laughed too, but then he ends up dragging me around, right through the trap area, while Sasuke and Sakura are just standing there. Ahahaha. She said, "Oh. Oh no. I hope you are okay." While laughing timidly because she felt bad for him and thought his story was funny. He laughed and held his head up, saying, "Yeah, dumb old traps weren't going to keep me down. Although I learned my lesson, never pick a big dog when it can take you for a walk." I think Kiba would have agreed, she grinned. Naruto grinned as she remarked, "Even so, I think you were very brave to take on such a big challenge." He shrugged his shoulders and said, "Yeah, man, I like talking with you. You're not what I imagined. Before I kind of thought you were this shy weirdo that just wanted to avoid eye contact with me," Hinata said, feeling her heart broken by verbal jabs at her persona. She perked up at the compliment, "But the more I've talked to you, the more I realize you're awesome," he said. She replied, "Thank you, I think you're awesome too. You always face any challenge no matter how difficult it is," to which Naruto replied with a smiling blink. She smiled and flushed, and he grinned, "Yeah, that's me. If I'm going to become Hokage, I face every challenge head on." She said, "Well, I'll be rooting for you," to which Naruto responded with a blink. "Really?" he inquired as she gave a nod. "Huh." Naruto shrugged and she asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing, it's just, whenever I tell people I'm going to be Hokage they either roll their eyes or tell me to give up. You're one of the only few, other than Iruka, who said they'd be cheering for me," he said with a soft smile. He said, It's nice. Thanks, Hinata." She blushed and twiddled her fingers. "Why? You're welcome," she said, grinning at Naruto. "By the way, thanks for the cinnamon rolls," she added, pointing to the partially consumed pastries next to her bed. She said, "How did you know I liked them?" And Naruto shrugged in response. "I was going to bring you some instant ramen, but Kurenai-sensei told me that's more my favorite food than yours. So she told me about how you like cinnamon rolls, and I figured I'd get them for you," he said, causing Hinata to blush and contemplate whether to thank Kurenai-sensei or yell at her. Naruto turned to face her, and she said, I do like ramen." She nodded her head and he asked, "Really?" In Hinata's mind, the offer was immediately associated with a date. "Well, when the exam's over and you get out of here, how about I take you to Ichiraku's? They make the best ramen," he exclaimed. Did Naruto-kun propose a date to me? She felt her face flush, so she let out a mental scream. She said, giving herself a mental pat on the back for uttering the word love, but she was also entertaining a little romantic fantasy in her mind. His words, "Cool. I always ask Sakura to come, but she always turns me down," came as Hinata's romantic notion of love broke like glass. He laughed as Hinata became more at ease, "But sometimes I can convince Kakashi-sensei to make it a team lunch, How is your team doing? You haven't talked about them much, aside from Sakura," she questioned, whispering the last bit so softly that Naruto wouldn't hear her. However, Naruto leaned back in his chair and nodded. "Yeah, my team is awesome, and weird. Kakashi-sensei is wicked strong, but also really lazy. He keeps telling us to arrive at the meeting spot early but doesn't get there till 3 hours later. And he keeps reading that perverted book of his Icha Paradise. Then there's Sasuke, who thinks he is so great. But you ask me, he's an arrogant jerk, and Sakura just keeps saying how amazing he is, and calls me an idiot. Man, I don't see what you girls at the academy like about him so much." Naruto sighed and crossed his arms. As Naruto blinked, Hinata said, Actually, I don't really like Sasuke like the other girls." She shook her head and he asked, "Huh? I thought all the girls liked him." Naruto looked at her with a hint of wonder. Not me, He was too edgy and cold. Plus all the other girls just kept chatting about him, it got annoying sometimes," she said. Naruto arched a brow as she continued, Also. His hair. The back of it looks like a duck's butt," she remarked, bringing to mind a vision of Sasuke's hair in the rear of a duck. Hinata blushed in embarrassment, but a tiny smile crept onto her face. Peeved. Ha ha ha. Oh my god. I never realized. His hair does look like a duck's butt. Ah ha 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 ha. Oh, man. It was right in front of me and I never saw it. Duck butt. Ah ha 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 ha. He laughed. He stopped laughing slowly and exclaimed, "Oh man, you are awesome Hinata, I never would have thought of that." Though Hinata was able to catch herself, Naruto had already heard her say, I'm sorry, but it does. It was one of the reasons I never found him all that great, if anything, I like your hair more, eep. Rubbing the top of his head, he said, Huh? Do you like my hair? He questioned, what's so special about my hair? As Hinata stammered to find the right words. She panicked as Naruto gave her a hard look and caused her to blush. W. Well, It's nothing but. She exclaimed. She felt flushed and brave enough to say, no seriously, what's so great about my hair? Before he could stop himself. W. Well, my family mostly has dark hair, it's actually kind of dreary. Sasuke reminds me of Neji, and I just don't like him like the other girls do, B. But when I see your hair, it reminds me of a sunflower, A. And I feel happy, she admitted while Naruto was brushing his hair. Huh, Naruto said, massaging his head with his hand. He remarked, a sunflower, that's a first, which made Hinata feel extremely embarrassed. Naruto shook his head and she frantically exclaimed, I feel so embarrassed. I'm sorry if I offended you. No, you didn't. I enjoyed that. Thank you. It was much better than getting a duck butt haircut. He exclaimed, causing Hinata to flush even more, but she still nodded. She nodded and Naruto said, why? You're welcome, but you really shouldn't be so mean about Sasuke. He is your teammate after all. I know. Despite being a teme, he's someone I trust on a mission. He saved my life twice during the wave mission and I can't imagine my team without him or Sakura. They're precious to me, and I don't want to see them get hurt. Naruto acknowledged with a nod. I understand, I'm the same with my team. Kiba can be a bit arrogant, and Shino is kind of hard to connect with, but honestly, I can't imagine being on any other team as well. They're like the brothers I never had, she said as Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, I get that, still, he can be such a jerk sometimes. Thinking he's better than everyone, well I'll show him when I become Chunin before him. He said with a grin. She gave Naruto a gentle smile and said, I believe in you, Naruto-kun, and I know you'll win. For a brief instant, Naruto felt his heart pound violently. What was that, huh? Was Hinata always this beautiful? Does it make sense? He asked himself. Before he cleared the weird feeling in his head with a shake of his head. He asked Hinata, who nodded, anyway, I should get going now. I've only got a few days left, but it was nice chatting with you Hinata, same time tomorrow? As he left the room, nodding slightly to the guards stationed there before bidding her farewell with a wave. Her heart began to race even faster after he left, and a joyful smile appeared on her face. The amount of time she'd been spending with her crush was still surreal. She asked if he would ever see her before he failed to notice her, not that she tried to make him notice her. However, she had spent more time with Neji over the course of 3 days following their altercation, when he approached her for advice, than she had during her entire tenure at the academy. She might have had one of her happiest days ever. Her guards yelled, Lady Hinata, as she hurried to the door. He told her, your team is here to see you, and she nodded. She said, thank you, as Shino, Kurenai, and Kiba entered the space. As Akamaru barked in agreement, Kiba exclaimed, hey, Hinata. Figured you were getting cooped up in here. So Team 8 has come to visit. Also, we brought cinnamon rolls, your favorite right? Shino remarked, Kiba, I don't think that will be necessary, to a raised eyebrow from Kiba. He asks, what makes you say that? Gesturing to the box of partially consumed cinnamon rolls. Kiba inquired, Somebody already got you some? As Kurenai gave Hinata a sly look, causing her to blush but maintaining a smile. Hey, why does it smell like Naruto was here? And that's when Hinata passed out. Concurrently, Hokage Tower. The Sandaime Hokage, Izoran Sarutobi, was busy contemplating the numerous dignitaries and officials who would be attending the Chunin exams. In addition, he was reviewing the reports of individuals who might be eligible for promotion in light of the examiner's prior findings and the information that would be presented at the finals. One such file concerned Shikamaru Nara, who, in his son's opinion, was a skillful tactician. He saw the advantage of giving the young man a promotion. Combatants were not the only ones who needed skilled tacticians. But he still needed to get better at fighting. Sasuke Uchiha was the next person. He was undoubtedly gifted, possessed exceptional intelligence and fighting prowess, and would undoubtedly make a great Chunin. Even without Kakashi's evaluation, though, it was clear that he was obsessed with finding his brother. The boy might be so consumed with getting even with his brother that he could overlook the welfare of the village. A lie-based form of retaliation. He frequently argued with Sasuke about telling him the truth about Itachi, that he was the most devoted shinobi and not a traitor, and the sacrifice he made to keep Konohagakure peaceful. To kill his own family in order to prevent them from carrying out a coup against the Hidden Leaf. However, he considered the chance that Sasuke might turn against the village if he discovered that Danzo and the elders had essentially given his brother orders to destroy his clan. However, he also vowed to carry his secret with him into eternity, as a promise to Itachi. Had the Uchiha not planned a coup, Itachi would have been a great Hokage. And then there was Uzumaki Naruto. His combat performance in the preliminary round was questionable, and his initial test results were blank, which did not demonstrate confidence in his intelligence. Gathering abilities. He was the only person in his grade with a stronger will of fire, though. Undoubtedly a trait he received from his parents, who had a deep affection for Konoha. However, the council insisted that the boy not be given a promotion, arguing that keeping him inside Konoha's boundaries and not giving him a promotion would be safer for the village. Most likely, it was just a means to prevent the other villages from getting their weapon. From the perspective of the other villages, Konoha owned the strongest Jinchuriki, which was considered a formidable weapon. Since the city-state's establishment, the nine-tailed fox had been under Konoha's ownership. Years ago, Kumokagure attempted to steal the nine-tails Jinchuriki Kushina, but Minato ultimately prevented him from succeeding. While it would make sense to keep the nine tails out of the hands of other villages, Hiruzen would not allow Naruto to develop and defend his home. However, he was unsure at the time if Naruto could become a Chunin so quickly. All he had to do was see how much the boy had changed after discovering the truth about his parents. He was suddenly confronted by an Anbu dressed in a white cloak and a cat motif mask. "Lord Hokage," the man uttered while Sarutobi gave a nod. The Anbu bowed and he asked, "Zo, what do you have to report?" "We have confirmed strange activities amongst the Suna ninjas. They appear to be in contact with sound as suspected. We are tracking them as we speak, however, we still have no sighting of Orochimaru or what his plans might be," he said to the Hokage with a nod. "I don't fault you for that. Orochimaru has always been a crafty one. I don't expect anyone to find him until he reveals himself. Keep up appearances, but be prepared to counter anything he throws at us," he ordered with a nod. "Yes, Lord Hokage," he replied before vanishing from sight. The elderly man sighed and reclined in his chair. Turning to face his former student, he heard Jiraiya say, "Keeping busy I see, old man?" The hermit nodded and he said, "Jiraiya, to what do I owe this visit? Is this about Naruto again?" "It's something he found, kind of," Jiraiya clarified as Sarutobi furrowed his brow. Jiraiya grinned and Sarutobi asked, "Something he found? What else could he know? He already knows of his parents. What more could he possibly know?" "Well, it's more of what we discovered at the former Uzumaki estate," he remarked, calling for Jaratura. "Who raised the Uzumaki scroll of sealing and unfolded it?" The elderly man almost raised his eyebrows to his receding hairline upon seeing it. "Is that?" Jiraiya revealed the scroll and its intricately coded seals, saying, "Yep, the long lost Uzumaki scroll of sealing. Turns out Kushina wasn't the only thing they sent here in case of an emergency. I've confirmed it's the real deal. Only an Uzumaki could create sealing measures like this. I've barely been able to decipher a section of it. So I can tell you it's genuine." As he studied the scroll, Sarutobi questioned, "Do you think this is how Kushina taught Minato sealing art and did he know about it?" "No clue, but it was hidden using a blood seal that only someone of Uzumaki descent could access." so whether or not she knew is debatable. But the fact that it wasn't destroyed during Uzumaki destruction makes me wonder what else they hid. Jiraiya replied as Sarutobi examined the scroll. Sarutobi examined the scroll and remarked, "This is by all means Naruto's birthright, and thus should be given to him when he's ready. However, perhaps I should study the scroll for a bit. It may contain something that would give us an advantage over Orochimaru. After all, the Dead Reaper seal was based on Uzumaki sealing techniques. Perhaps in here lies the answers to stopping him," Sarutobi thought to himself. "Whatever you think is the best, old man, but the longer this thing is out in the open, the more likely it will be discovered like Orochimaru, or Danzo," he warned as Sarutobi nodded. "Yeah, that's right," he said, unfolding the scroll and returning it to Jiraiya, who resealed it inside Jiraiya. "In the spare time you have, I would like you and me to go over the scroll. Together, we may be able to learn something from the Uzumaki," he inquired while the Toad Sage nodded. He narrowed his eyes and said to Sarutobi, "I hope so, because tomorrow, I'm going to see if I can get Naruto to draw out the 9 tails chakra." Jiraiya nodded, and he asked, "Isn't that risky?" He thought as he looked down at the Uzumaki sealing scroll, "I know, but with what's happening, we'll need all the strength we can muster." And Minato placed the 9 tails inside his son for a reason. I just hope he knew what he was doing. Afterwards, waterfall area. As he traveled toward the training grounds, Naruto hummed. He was walking to the waterfall in the best mood imaginable. His training was progressing well. He was becoming more adept at summoning, had improved chakra control, and possessed some really powerful jutsu. He was also in a good mood because, for some reason, Hinata's support gave him the impression that he could achieve anything. He was even happier when she added that Sasuke had a duck butt head. He laughed to himself as he arrived at the waterfalls, he. Duckbit. Man, I can't believe I never thought of that. Before long, he saw Jiraiya writing in his notebook while seated beneath the tree. Jiraiya sighed and he yelled, "Hey pervy sage." He closed his book, telling himself, "One of these days, I'll get him to stop calling me that." He grinned and said, "Welcome back, how was your little date yesterday?" While Naruto gave him a stern look. "I was just visiting Hinata, she's cool once you get to know her," Naruto said, grinning at the prospect of spending time with her. "It wasn't a date," he added. "But anyway, it's time to get back to training. So, what shall it be? Finish up the water bullet jutsu, the mud wall, or should I try to summon another toad?" he asked with a sigh. He said, "None of that," in a harsh voice that attracted Naruto's attention. "I've been holding off on it because I wanted to get your basics up to speed, and after the genjutsu I realized that I needed to tread carefully for this next bit. But with how much time is left, we don't have many options," Jiraiya said while Naruto appeared worried. "What do you mean?" Naruto inquired, his eyes widening with realization as Jiraiya gestured to his stomach. "For the remainder of your training, we are going to get you to draw out the 9 tails chakra." With just 1 week remaining before the finals, Naruto had advanced significantly. With the help of the shadow clone technique, he was able to summon small to medium sized toads at will because his chakra control had become much more stable. He acquired certain jutsus that would give him an advantage in the finals and was able to change his chakra nature into wind, water, or earth. And the shadow clone's accelerated training method was the reason behind it all. But his body wasn't made stronger just because the memory transfer improved his mental and chakra abilities. He had to complete that portion on his own, which he accomplished by doing several strength training exercises and 1 taijutsu lessons with Jiraiya. However, as the month break was coming to an end, Naruto had to devote all of his attention to the most difficult aspect of his training: the chakra with 9 tails. Naruto was not too excited about summoning the 9 tails chakra because he felt conflicted about the beast that was sealed inside of him. The majority of his early suffering was partly caused by the 9 tails. He was isolated by the villagers, the stores hardly fed him, and he would have likely starved to death if not for the old man and old man Isaraku. In addition, it was the one who murdered his parents before he had the chance to meet them. He therefore felt quite conflicted about it. Anger, some would even say. But even as a small child, his father trusted him, and there was a reason why he had the 9 tails inside of him. That realization made him realize that, despite his desire to avoid it, he would have to learn how to control the 9 tails power. Focus, 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 was all Naruto could say to himself as he kept attempting to summon the Nine Tails power. However, despite his best efforts, he was unable to remove the damn thing. He sighed, then grunted, "Come on. It's no use, I can't seem to get it out. I don't understand, I got my chakra under control, how come I'm not getting access to the Nine Tails?" Naruto raised an eyebrow and Jiraiya said, "Well, that's just it, Naruto. You've got your chakra under control, but it's different with the Nine Tails. Remember, the Nine Tails isn't just a massive source of chakra, it's also a living and thinking creature. It has a will of its own, and I doubt you'll be able to just take its chakra. The first step will be trying to contact the creature, then figuring out how to draw out its chakra. Man, I wish Dad would have left some kind of instructions on how to do that. I went over Mum's journal 1,000 times, and it doesn't say anything about how to control the Nine Tails," Naruto said while Jiraiya sighed. If life were that simple, Minato was a genius, but even I doubt he knew what it would take to draw out the Nine Tails, plus your mother acted more as a warden than a weapon. And I didn't find out she was a Jinchuriki till after her death. I'm not even sure if she used its power, so you're going to have to figure this out on your own," Jiraiya said with a sigh. "Yeah, that figures, I still don't like this idea of using the Nine Tails power, I mean, how could I possibly use the power of the same creature, knowing that it ruined my life and killed my parents?" Naruto asked with a sigh. As Naruto felt sorry for him, he said, "I understand your conflicting emotions, and I get where you're coming from. Don't forget Minato was my pupil and the closest thing I ever had to a son. But a ninja must never forsake a tool over personal feelings. The Nine Tails may be the cause of your suffering, but you can use that power now to protect the ones you care about. Turn it from a force of evil to a force for good. Your father believed you could wield the power, now you just need to believe in yourself," he said while looking at the individual and nodded. Jiraiya laughed as Naruto remarked, "You know, you'd be a real motivation. If you weren't a massive pervert." Jiraiya remarked, "The old man used to say that to me all the time," and Naruto laughed along with her. "All right, but how are you going to do it? I mean, if there's no record of how Mom or Mito used the Nine Tails, then how am I supposed to start?" Jiraiya thought to herself. Naruto's mind flashed back to the moment and he shivered at the memory. "Well, you should know, I noticed that you did manage to tap into the Nine Tails chakra before, after the genjutsu trick," he said. I did? I don't remember," he said, massaging his head with a hand. "How did I do it? All I can remember of that was being really angry. And that I believe that was the key. According to legend, the Nine Tails is composed of powerful chakra, fueled by anger and hatred. It stands to reason that to draw it was drawn to your negative emotions. At that moment you felt angry at me, and the Nine Tails chakra responded to that. Tell me, was there any other time the chakra reacted to anger?" he inquired as Naruto blinked as he mimed to work. Jiraiya clenched his fist at the mention of the snake, knowing that it was Orochimaru. Anger. Come to think of it, I remember getting angry during the wave mission, thinking Sasuke had died. And then in the forest, I recall getting real angry at this weird ninja that used a snake summon. But that's when my memory gets hazy. Do I really have to use anger to access it? Well, it seems like the easiest option. But there are many ways that it could go wrong. The Nine Tails may even use your anger to weaken the seal and break free. I would like to attempt other methods first before we consider them. One idea I have is for you to use up all your natural chakra, thereby leaving only the Nine Tails left, Jiraiya said as he got up and walked to the man. Which is why today we'll have you go all out, every skill I taught you, every shadow clone you can muster and the biggest summon you can make. After that, your chakra levels should be low enough that it will force your body to make contact with the Nine Tails, Jiraiya said with a nod. He asked as Jiraiya held up some tiny square paper seals, but what if I lose control? You said the Nine Tails might use my own anger to weaken the seal. What happens if he manages to control me? These are suppression seals, based on notes I found in one of your father's scrolls. Before I started training you, my initial plan was to focus on having you access the Nine Tails, so I had these prepared just in case. But then you found out about your parents, and the memory trick helped change your training plan. But these seals have the power to suppress the 9 tails chakra, but I don't know if they will work if you access more of its chakra. Even these things have a limit, Jiraiya clarified. Naruto nodded and he said, if it looks like you're losing control, I will place one of them on you. Alright, if you say so, Naruto uttered as he got to his feet and wiped the grass from his pants. Alright, time to waste up all my chakra. How long can that take? After 3 hours. Panting heavily, sweat trickled from Naruto's brow. There were craters, overturned trees, and a few haphazardly protruding stones from the earth all around him. His knees gave way slightly and his hands trembled as he struggled to stay upright. I believe I have depleted all of my chakra, he uttered, feebly raising his hands to reveal the Shadow Clone seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he said as he saw only one clone materialize in front of him. Looking exactly as worn out and unkempt as the original. As he and the clone went through the seals, he said, nope. Still have a little left in the tank. Jiraiya was both impressed and concerned by his student, godson, as he watched from the sidelines. He was aware that the Uzumaki family was well known for their endurance and substantial reserves of chakra, but this was absurd. He had underestimated how long the boy would last, and he still had the will to go on. As he watched the boy try to deplete his enormous reserves of chakra, Jiraiya muttered to himself, geez, if I knew it was going to take this long I would have bought a pack of cards. Being descended from the Uzumaki family was undoubtedly a contributing factor to Naruto's immense chakra reserves, but even this was excessive. It might have been because the 9 tails had been sealed inside him since birth. If Minato had intentionally created the seal to allow trace amounts of chakra to seep into his son's system, then something must have been planned. Minato, whatever it was you were getting your son ready for. As Naruto wasted more of his chakra to advance to the next training phase, Jiraiya thought, I hope you knew what you were doing. Naruto gasped, feeling as though all of his chakra had vanished and he was left with nothing. Even though it took an additional hour, he succeeded. Alright. Huff, huff. I believe that concludes it. He bellowed to Jiraiya while nodding. Okay, now for the tricky part. I figure the best way to get the 9 tails out would be to try and use a jutsu powerful enough to warrant its chakra. So, try and summon the largest toad you can, and pour as much chakra as you can. But seeing as you were empty, maybe the 9 tails might accommodate? The theories of Jiraiya were nodded by Naruto. After that, he bit his thumb and made all the hand gestures required for the jutsu, but he felt weak and his eyes began to blur. Naruto managed to yell, S. Summoning Juts. You, as he slammed his hand to the floor. But nothing occurred. Neither smoke nor a seal could be seen. Jiraiya asked, anything? As Naruto shook his head and felt weak all of a sudden. He said, Nope. I've got nothing, before collapsing and Jiraiya catching him in the nick of time. He said, geez, finally conked out. I wondered what would take so long, before setting the boy down. He let the boy rest and remarked, I figured this method wouldn't work. But it was a decent try nonetheless. I can't let him go out of control, but I still need him to access the 9 tails chakra. He thought to himself, this close to the finals, probably not a good idea. But I could weaken the seal, Minato left me the key after all. Anger is a dangerous but potentially important tool in this. What else could work? The 9 tails could use it to weaken the seal and break out if he gets too enraged. As he pondered, he thought to himself. It could be dangerous, but perhaps the 9 tails' fear of dying could make them act. The seal was created by Minato to ensure that the 9 tails would die along with Naruto. However, there have been reports in the past that tailed beasts reappear after their containers have died. He thought to himself, I'm just hoping that helping Naruto would convince it to prevent its own early demise, which means I have to try that. In the interim, Hokage's manor. Seated on a couch in Hokage Manor, Hiruzen Sarutobi gazed up at the pictures of the previous Hokage. He focused especially on the portrait of Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, his late successor. A talented shinobi and one of the factors that led to the conclusion of the Third Shinobi War. He laughed at the irony of it all and often wondered what Minato would have done in his shoes. He muttered to himself, it should have been the other way around. I'm getting far too old for this job, and then he sighed and felt the familiar presence. Anko. Lord Hokage, was her reply. I wanted to apologize once more, for. Anko nodded and he asked, for coming back from the forest alive? There is nothing to be sorry about. I'm not angry at all, actually, I am more relieved than anything. There is nothing between you and Orochimaru anymore, that much is clear. And if I am honest, I doubt anyone could go up against him, I doubt even I can stop him, he stated. Gazing at the image of the fourth, Anko uttered the words, if only the fourth was still alive. Don't say that, he already gave his life for the village. He sacrificed everything he had to save us, even when he had so much more to live for. It's been 13 years since then, let him rest in peace. We have to rely on our own power, he said as he rose to retrieve his Hokage hat in his hands. She turned to face him and he said, I'm going to get some air. And Anko. She stared at the elderly Hokage for a moment before bowing to him. Orochimaru always set himself on a path of his own choosing. The fact you are alive now means you still have more to grow and far surpass him as a leaf shinobi. He said. The village was visible to the third Hokage as he strolled up the stairs to the manor's roof and gazed out over the many lives he was responsible for. He relived his childhood, recalling his training under his senseis Hashirama and Tobirama. He, along with many other shinobi living in Konoha, was infused with the will of fire by the two of them when they founded the village. He aspired to keep up the standards and example that the two had set for us. Suddenly, Sarutobi heard Iruka and his class sitting on the roof of the Hokage manor. Okay class, today we'll be having our history lesson outside. As most of you already know, this is the Hokage's stone faces, from the first Hokage to the fourth, he said. Yes, that is correct. As he watched his grandson in the classroom, he recalled, I gave Iruka permission to have his class here today. Konohamaru let out a startled laugh as he glanced up at the third stone face. Gazing up at his stone monument, he thought to himself, I get the feeling he just compared me to my youth. It was true that I had more hair in the past, he laughed to himself. Iruka shook his head and one of the younger girls said, Iruka-sensei. Who is the fifth Hokage? Well, Lord Third is still in charge and the fifth Hokage hasn't been appointed yet, but who knows? Maybe it can be me. He exclaimed, laughing heartily. As he approached the class, Hiruzen remarked, You have a fine class here, Iruka. Weaving an occasional joke to make for a relaxing lesson. Iruka bowed to the third Hokage and exclaimed, Lord Third. As the elderly man laughed, Konohamaru yelled, Grandpa, what are you doing here? As Konohamaru smiled at his grandfather, Sarutobi said, Well, I decided to come see the Hokage faces myself. I find the air up here to be quite relaxing. Sarutobi nodded and moved to stand next to Iruka. Lord Hokage, I must say this is perfect timing. Could you come over here? Iruka asked. This man is the owner of the third face on the mountain, the third Hokage. He was regarded as the strongest shinobi of his day, a genius amongst the Hokage and even earned the title of professor. For his vast knowledge of ninjutsu, Iruka said with a slight scowl. Sarutobi lectured, Don't talk about me in the past tense, you know. I'm still here, while Iruka bowed pitifully. Sorry, Lord Third, Iruka apologized. Huh, are you really that strong? Several children remarked, You don't look like much, as Konohamaru nodded. Observing directly how simple it was for Naruto to defeat him. To be fair, the sexy jutsu was to blame for that. The third was stronger than all of them put together in a real fight. Sarutobi laughed as Iruka lectured his class, Hey. Show some respect. To earn the title of Hokage means you are the strongest in the village. It's not something to make light of. A proud student exclaimed, Oh yeah? Well, I'm going to become the fifth Hokage. Iruka said, I've seen your grades, you won't become Hokage anytime soon, to the students' flinching and mildly mocking laughter. Sarutobi laughed to himself as he peered among the kids. He joked as they laughed, You all have something else I don't have anymore. Youth. You've got a lot of confidence, and that's a good thing to have, he said. As he observed each student, Sarutobi remarked, You are all young and full of potential. Maybe one of you will claim the title of Hokage someday. But bear in mind, you only have one life. Don't waste it choosing an impossible path, live your life as you want and die as you want, whether that's becoming Hokage or a fine shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. However, he said while everyone was paying attention to him. They appeared slightly perplexed as he gave them advice. No matter what road you take, always remember to protect the precious people in your life, he said. Sarutobi nodded and a small girl asked, "Precious people?" He asked the girl, who nodded, they are the people that you acknowledge, cherish, and love with all your heart. Do you have people like that? She said, my mama and papa, and my brother, even though he annoys me sometimes. And my dog Gonta, while others began enumerating the individuals in their lives. One of the students asked, Hokage Sama, do you have precious people you care about? And Sarutobi nodded. As they all leaned in closer, he said, of course I do. My grandson Konohamaru over there, my sons and my daughter. In law and of course. Everyone in this village, he remarked, capturing their attention. Gazing up at the fourth Hokage monument, Sarutobi said, to me, everyone in this village is my precious person, people I will protect with my life. And that is part of the reason why I became Hokage. Saying to himself, just like you did long ago, Minato, Sarutobi turned to face his former successor and the child he had left behind. The following day, as he moved toward the training area, Naruto yawned. He had tried to summon the 9 Tails chakra yesterday and had used up all of his chakra. Still, he had not really advanced all that far. Naruto was equally as obstinate and committed to mastering the 9 Tails chakra, even though trying to summon its power wasn't simple. And so he would try again. But Jiraiya had instructed him to meet him further out from the waterfall today. When he was still at the academy, Naruto was told not to go there. Naruto exclaimed, hey pervy sage, upon spotting the toad sage. As the sage fixed the boy with his gaze, he said, so, why did you want to meet here? Pervy sage? He inquired, looking a little worried at the look he was giving him. He said in an ominous tone that Naruto didn't like Naruto. For this portion of your training, you must figure out how to draw out the 9 Tails power. If you don't, you will die. What topic is he discussing? I don't like this. The last time he said something like that, he attacked me with that fucking genjutsu. He never had a chance to finish his thought before Jiraiya flicked his forehead and sent him sailing. Well, I'm ready for anything. Huh? Before he could look down and see a wide chasm that extended as far as the eye could see in a nearly bottomless pit below, Naruto thought to himself. Naruto cried out, ah! As he started to fall. Naruto cried out, what the hell? Is he insane? As the wind whipped past him and he plummeted into the chasm. Jiraiya, meanwhile, watched his godson plummet over the chasm while observing from above. I detest having to do this, but there isn't much of an alternative. You need to turn the key on your end, Jiraiya pondered. As Naruto put his hands together and directed his chakra toward his hands and feet, he yelled, shit. Shit, shit, shit. I need to grab something. Naruto exclaimed, okay. Here we go. As he reached out to grab one of the sharp rocks, but his hand slipped and he fell further. Jiraiya watched his student try to stop his descent and said, that's not going to work. The rocks are too slippery to grab onto with chakra and at that speed, you won't get a good grip. Naruto grabbed for his pouch, but it was missing. Crap. I need to think of something else. I know. My tools. I just need. Where the hell are my tools? He yelled. With Naruto's ninja pouch in his hand, Jiraiya spoke, you have to call on the 9 Tails, you can't rely on your tools. Damn it, damn it. I'm going to die. Naruto exclaimed, his thoughts returning to the word, die. As he descended farther and farther, his heartbeat could be heard in his ears. All the people in his life flashed through his mind. The old man, Urasaraku and Ayane, Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi, Iruka, and Hinata. I'm going to die. Die, die, die. He abruptly found himself in an unfamiliar palace. A long hallway with several pipes hanging from the ceiling and water up to his ankles surrounding his feet. Alright, this is new, Naruto remarked, surveying the odd location. He wondered where the hell he was and asked himself, where the heck am I? He said, wasn't I just falling? Just as he heard a loud growl from down the hall. However, as he moved down the hallway, he sensed something familiar. It had happened to one person a few times. He kept thinking to himself as he moved down the hall, this feeling. It's the chakra, until he came to a large room with a massive metal gate. As a paper tag reading seal was applied to the gate, he peered upon it. This is. Red chakra illuminated the beast's form in the shadows of the cage, revealing a pair of red eyes and pointed teeth. This was the thing that had been sealed within him, as well as inside Mito Uzumaki's mother and herself. The fox with 9 tails. The 9 tails commanded Naruto to come closer. This was said as he foolishly advanced toward the beast. As soon as he did so, a claw caught on the cage, causing him to jump back, while 9 tails laughed. The 9 tailed fox smiled and looked down on Naruto, saying, "Damn, there's nothing more I'd like to do than to kill you and eat you up. But this damn seal is in the way." He questioned mockingly as Naruto nodded, "So my container and I finally meet. After so many years. You know what I am, right?" "Why? Yeah, I know who you are, you're the 9 tailed fox, the same creature that terrorized Konoha 13 years ago, the one the 4th Hokage sealed away," he said with a grin on his face. He raised a brow at the fox and said, "The same creature that was sealed inside my mother," before smiling once more. The beast smiled and Naruto scowled at the remark, "I see. So you know about that, do you? I'm surprised, I could have sworn I was sealed inside an idiot. You are Kushina's son after all." He nodded, glaring at Naruto, "So. If you know about that, then you know what I did to her?" With a great laugh, the fox said, "Yeah, I know. You killed her and my father. They gave their lives to seal you in me." The fox raised his claw in mockery, saying, "Correct, but do you know how they died?" As Naruto growled angrily. "They died skewered on my claw, protecting an insignificant life such as yours," the fox said. "I can feel your hatred, you hate me so much right now, don't you?" "You're damn right I hate you. Because of you, everyone in the village hates me. Because of you, I had to scrounge and scrape just to survive. Because of you, my parents died before I could ever know them. I hate you so much I want to kill you. I hate you." He yelled in rage as the fox giggled. He mocked the boy, trying to get him to remove the seal, saying, "Then show me, brat. Remove this seal and show me your anger." And for a split second, he was tempted to act in that manner. Nevertheless, Naruto merely shook his head. "No. You think I'm an idiot. But I know what would happen if I removed that seal. You'd bust out of here and wreak havoc on everyone. Well, fat chance. My mother kept you locked away for a reason, so that's what I'm going to do as well." Naruto yelled. He demanded as the fox starred before laughing and smiling, "But since you are living in my body, you are going to start paying some rent. So you're going to give me access to your chakra. 'Cause if not, we're both going to die. So what do you have to say about that?" The fox said, "You are brave, I'll give you that. And in any case, if you die, I die. And I'd rather not have that." Red energy was swirling before it wrapped around Naruto as the red chakra started to leak out of the cage. As he was enveloped in the twisted energy, Naruto exclaimed, "Ga!" As Naruto was given the 9 tailed fox's abilities, the fox chuckled and said, "So here. Consider it a reward for making it this far." As Naruto fell down the chasm and found himself back in reality, his eyes snapped open. This sensation. Knowing what to do, Naruto felt the 9 tails chakra swirling within him. With a swift bite of his thumb, he performed a series of hand gestures, pouring out the 9 tails chakra and yelling, "Summoning jutsu!" He exclaimed, his vision obscured by a thick cloud of smoke and his blue chakra exploding into a massive red chakra. Before long, he noticed a sizable figure at the bottom of the chasm. Before long, he noticed the biggest toad he had ever seen, and his eyes grew wide. Upon seeing the summon at the base of the ravine, Jiraiya smiled. Jiraiya commented, "Hey, not bad kid," while Naruto grinned with delight. He exclaimed, "All right. I did it." As he quickly landed on the toad's back. His head rubbed. "Ow, that still hurts," he exclaimed. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes, assessing what he could see. This time, it appears that he was successful in drawing the 9 tails chakra by himself. But it's not stable yet, Jiraiya thought. He managed to summon him of all summons by putting in too much chakra. This is not going to be good. As Naruto swept past the toad, the latter exclaimed, "Huh? What the hell am I doing down here?" He had bright red markings around his eyes and lips, a scar covering his left eye, and was a massive dull rusty red toad. He had a long smoking pipe in his mouth, a massive dosu blade around his waist, and a dark blue happy vest on. Naruto yelled, "Whoa. Hey, sorry about that. I kind of didn't have much of a choice." As the toad raised his head and the boy bent to meet the toad's gaze. Naruto gave a nervous smile, but the toad yelled, "Huh? Who the heck are you, brat?" The toad looked at him and then laughed loudly. Sorry, I was kind of thrown down here and I didn't have much of a choice," he said. "Ha ha ha. Nice try, brat. No way a tadpole like you could have summoned me. Now, where is Jiraiya? If this is some joke he's playing, he's got another thing coming to him." The toad shrieked as Naruto glared. The toad looked at Naruto and said, "No, really, I summoned you." Before bursting out laughing. "That's a really funny kid. The amount of chakra it would have taken to summon me is well beyond you. I am the chief of the toads, Gamabunta. The best you could probably summon is a tadpole." Ahahahaha. Gamabunta chuckled as Naruto grew increasingly. He yelled, "Hey! Shut up, you damn jerk!" As Gamabunta came to a stop. The toad narrowed his eyes at Gamabunta and yelled, "Listen, I did summon you. I called you out, so that basically makes me your master. So shut up and help me out of here." He said, Please?" As the toad snarled. At that, Jiraiya chose to turn around. "And I'm sorry, kid, but that's my signal to go. However, even I am powerless against someone like Gamabunta," he thought to himself as he turned to leave. Gamabunta glared at Naruto from back in the chasm, then grinned a little. "Boy, you've got a smart mouth. No one talks to the chief of the toads like that," he exclaimed, encircling the boy with his tongue. Naruto exclaimed, "Oh, gross," just before he was thrown onto the toad's back. He curtsied and leapt out of the chasm in one bound, exclaiming, "But if you want out of here, that's fine by me. I need to have a word with Jiraiya." The centripetal force was rough, and the wind pressed hard against Naruto. Very quick. Naruto spoke for a moment before experiencing a sudden weightlessness since he and Gamabunta were above the chasm. "Too high," he exclaimed as gravity took over. He barely had time to grab Gamabunta's coat before tumbling back down on his own. Dust was thrown into the air and trees were toppled as the massive toad crashed into the forest. Naruto was knocked off the toad by the impact and landed on his posterior. "Ow," he muttered, gazing up at the enormous Gamabunta. "Wow, you're much larger than I had anticipated," Naruto exclaimed as Gamabunta knelt beside him. "Hate to tell you this, brat, but even if I were to believe that you were the one to summon me, and that is a really big if, there's no way I can consider someone who falls off my back so easily as my summoner, let alone my underling," Gamabunta said while staring into Naruto's eyes. "Now, if you'll excuse me, it's been a really long time since I was summoned to the human world. And if Jiraiya doesn't have a need for me, then I'm going to take a nice long walk to stretch my legs," he said as he walked away. Naruto exclaimed, Hey. What a minute." He began to lumber away, saying, "Listen, kid, just go home. It's clear you're incapable of serving as my henchman." But when Naruto became enraged with the giant toad, he felt a blood vessel form on his head. Not one to take a jab, he lunged ahead and began rolling onto his back, landing squarely in the toad's face. "Huh? What the heck do you think you're doing? Listen here, you big jerk. I am the one that summoned you. I signed the contract. But if getting you to respect me depends on staying on your back, then I'll stay on your back for the rest of the day. If I can do that, then you have to agree to be your master." Naruto screamed as Gamabunta began flailing, yelling, "You really are a snot-nosed brat. Fine, if that's what you want, then you got it. But don't think I'll go easy on you." Naruto exclaimed, "Whoa. Got to focus on my chakra," as he conjured the last of his remaining chakra into his hands and feet. As Gamabunta thrashed around, uprooting trees and causing a storm, he yelled, "Get off." Jiraiya observed from the sidelines the entire time. Jiraiya observed through his spyglass and said, "The kid's got guts, I'll give him that much." Gamabunta is one stubborn toad. This will be interesting. He glanced down from his perch to see several women taking a bath in the waterfall when he heard some giggling. He looked at the women and giggled, twistedly, "Hee, sorry Naruto, but I've got some important research to conduct, hee," while Naruto was fighting for his life to hold onto the raging toad. Hospital Konoha. Hinata's room. Hinata was occupied with her knitting, as it was a calming pastime for her. Her mother had been supportive, even though her father might not have agreed with such an activity. She remembered a red scarf Naruto had as a kid, torn up by some bullies a few years ago, and that was part of the reason she had a crush on him. She struggled with her shyness and lack of confidence, but she wanted to knit him the ideal scarf to give to him one day. But as a result of his recent visits, her confidence started to grow. Even though she was still shy and self-conscious, she could at least now talk to her crush properly without feeling faint. Well, when she became agitated, she still struggled to maintain eye contact, but hey, baby steps. Her father had just visited her and told her that the elders were saddened by her defeat to Neji, and that when the time came, they would still be preparing Hanabi to assume the role of heiress. Yes, it was depressing, but it was also for the best. She didn't think she could lead the Hyuga clan effectively in the future. She lacked the coldness of most other Hyuga and the strength to fight her own family. From the moment of her birth, she was unique. Her mother used to tell her that she should never change who she was because she had the kindest heart of any Hyuga. She blushed and smiled to herself. "I may not be the leader father wanted me to be, but I can still be a shinobi of the hidden leaf, like Naruto is." Her heart warmed at the sound of his name. She wished so much she could tell him how much she appreciated him. Love was a big step, and they were still kids. However, she was aware that her feelings for the blonde were genuine and not just a result of how the other girls felt about Sasuke. Hers was inspired by Naruto's disposition, character, and never say die attitude. After all, that was his shinobi way. It was how they did things. At that, she blushed and gave a small giggle. Conversation aside, it's 5 o'clock, Naruto. Kun ought to be here by now. She uttered, glancing toward the door in anticipation of seeing her idol. However, he wasn't. She sighed, a hint of disappointment in her voice. "I guess he's not coming today," and shook her head. "Hinata, please stop acting that way. Naruto. Kun is preparing extremely hard for the finals and can't afford to be sidetracked." "His recent visitation is a blessing in and of itself," she remarked, then she turned to face the setting sun outside the window. "I do hope he's not overdoing it?" A few hours later, Naruto, who had been submerged in the lake for a short while, was gasping for air as he attempted to take a deep breath. When Gamabunta threatened to not be kind to him, he meant business. If toads weren't unable to breathe underwater, he would have perished. With what little chakra remained, Naruto clung to the toad's back and asked, "Had enough?" Gamabunta cried out, trying to use the waves to knock the boy off as he ran across the lake. "You are insanely stubborn. You know that, brat." Naruto shook his head and he yelled, "You're the one that came up with this stupid challenge in the first place. Just give up." As he was thrown left and right, Naruto yelled, "No way. There's only a little more time left until sunset. After that, you have to agree that I'm your master." Gamabunta yelled, "As if it matters to me." Before launching himself into the air and landing forcefully, he stared in deep silence, and Jiraiya watched from a distance. "That child truly lacks self-control, huh? He's just like you too," he remarked, reflecting on Kushina and Minato's own obstinacy. As Gamabunta crashed hard into the river, he yelled, "I'm not falling off. You hear me? I'm going to become Hokage someday. Just watch." Naruto persisted though. "I'm getting really tired of this brat. I could just ignore him, but it irritates me more when he takes a licking, even if it's just by hanging onto my back." Gamabunta turned to face the boy who was clinging to his back, thinking to himself, "I need to end this once and for all." He said, "Hey kid, what's your name?" To Naruto's smile. "Uzumaki." "Naruto." He exhaled sporadically. The toad hummed, "Alright, Naruto Uzumaki." He bowed his head. He yelled as he leapt high into the air, "Don't blame me if you die." Naruto was pushing hard against the force of the jump, fighting to stay conscious. Jiraiya thought to himself, that Gamabunta, now it's a matter of pride for him. As the big toad leapt toward him. As soon as he cleared the path and it fell into the river where the women had been playing earlier, he exclaimed, "Oh boy." He yelled, "No. Not the river where the pretty ladies swam." As Naruto almost fell off the toad's back. When multiple Naruto clones appeared, he instinctively made his favorite hand gesture, crap. Crap, crap, crap. Shadow clone jutsu. Hey, guys. Need a little help. He exclaimed, sending the Narutos racing to seize hold of the original, creating a chain of them all. Whoa. Hey, I got you. I got you, I got you, I got you. The clones cried out, "Hey, who's got me?" As they succeeded in keeping Naruto from falling off. Jiraiya said, "How about that, he can still draw out some chakra." But as they separated one by one, the clones lifted Naruto up, leaving the original on Gamabunta's head, which he attempted to shake one last time but was unable to remove. Gazing into the toad boss's eyes, Naruto smiled and said, "H. How do you like that? I'm on your back, still. I've won. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Naruto fainted and fell back off the toad's head due to a sudden dizziness. Whoa. He will die if he falls in that manner. Just as Jiraiya was about to react, Naruto was stopped mid. Fall and placed back on his head by Gamabunta's tongue, which shot out and wrapped around him. Gamabunta remarked, "Hey. You were pretty close there, brat," just before the summoning scroll was abruptly thrown in front of him and Naruto's name appeared on it. "Hey, that Jiraiya, meddling in," Gamabunta said. "It's just been a while since someone climbed on top of my head, and I know this kid called me all by himself. Not since the time of the fourth Hokage." Gamabunta looks at the unconscious boy and says, "But from the looks of it, he's all tuckered out. I don't mind sharing my power with him, but I think it would be best if he goes to one of your human healers." Then, with Naruto on his head, he abruptly jumps away. A while later, the hospital staff was baffled as to what had caused that big shake earlier, finding nothing more than an unconscious Uzumaki and a sizable footprint covered in webs on the ground. 5 days remain until the finals. With a groan, Naruto's eyes gradually adapted to the intense illumination overhead. Before realizing that he was in a hospital, he was initially perplexed. From his numerous trips to Hinata, he was familiar with the ceiling. I see. Pervy. Sage must have brought me here, as I'm in the hospital. How long was I out? Before realizing there was someone else in the room, he asked himself this question in his head. As he was reading a book, Shikamaru said, "Hey, so you woke up, the doctors said you've been out for nearly 3 days. Was worried you were going to miss the finals." Naruto said, "Hey, Shikamaru. What are you doing here?" To Shikamaru's shrug. He said, "Well, I came to see Choji, then I heard you were here so I thought I'd come to visit you," to which Naruto nodded. Shikamaru sighed and he said, "Okay, that's cool. Hey, wait a minute. I thought Choji's injuries were fully healed, why is he in the hospital?" "Oh that. Yeah. They were healed, but we went out for some barbecue last night and he ended up getting a stomachache," he said with a chuckle. "Yeah, that does sound like Choji." Shikamaru said, "Yeah. Well, turned out I wasn't the only one to visit you. Apparently you've had a frequent visitor ever since you were found passed out the front," to Naruto's bright smile and blink. He questioned, "Sakura-chan?" As Shikamaru shook his head. Naruto blinked, then appeared to smile more warmly. "Nah, it was Hinata apparently, which was surprising. I thought she was too shy to visit someone like you," he said. Shikamaru blinked at this news and he said, "Really, Hinata came to visit me? That's awesome, I guess she wanted to return the favor." He asked, "You've been visiting Hinata?" And Naruto gave him a nod. Naruto asked accusingly, "Why do you sound so surprised?" Shikamaru raised his hands in defense. He remarked, "Nothing, it's just I'm surprised. Honestly, I thought you barely knew she existed," to Naruto's slight cringe. "Geez, when you say it like that you make it sound like I'm a jerk or something. But yeah, I see your point. Well, after I started my training with Pervy Sage, he suggested I come visit Hinata to get some insight on Neji. It wasn't a lot, But I think I understand Neji more, and I found out Hinata is kind of awesome to hang around with, he said with a more sincere smile. He slapped his own forehead and laughed at the last part, saying, she wants to be an awesome shinobi like me, and she pointed out that Sasuke's hair looks like a duck's butt. He laughed, oh, man. I never knew she could be so funny. While Shikamaru looked on in a little shocked disbelief. Well, this is a bit unforeseen. Although I am aware that Hinata has a crush on him, I didn't think he would pay attention to her. Most of his time was spent pursuing Sakura. Not to mention that he's not being as vocal as he usually does, Shikamaru said to himself as he lowered his gaze. He thought, what the heck have you been putting yourself through, what a drag. Naruto asked as Shikamaru jolted out of his reverie, so, hey, Shikamaru, how long until the finals? Naruto nodded and he said, oh, it's tomorrow, at midday, you've been out for 3 days. Naruto crossed his legs and said, I see, 3 days huh? I guess I really did push it too hard. I'm a little annoyed I slept for 3 days, but what can you do? As Shikamaru blinked, Naruto remarked, I've done all I can, so I guess there's nothing to do but rest up for the day. Huh? What? Inquired Naruto. Nothing, it's just, I half expected you to start panicking about having only 1 day left till the finals. But you're taking this surprisingly calm, for someone like you, he said with a smirk. Yeah well, during my training I realized I have a tendency to rush ahead, overreact and not think things beforehand. I had to change that about me, not to say I still won't do it on occasion. Besides, there's only 1 day left, what else could I possibly be able to do then? Naruto replied as Shikamaru stared at him. Who are you, and what have you done with the real Naruto? With a sigh of relief, Shikamaru let out, I am the real Naruto, you pineapple. Headed jerk. Naruto exclaimed. He stated, ah, it is the real you, while Naruto gave a small pout. He held up a basket of fruit and said, anyway, I wanted to bring Choji some fruit, but the doctor said he couldn't have any. Naruto nodded and he asked, want some? He exclaimed, sure. I'm starving. As Shikamaru tossed him an apple. Just as Naruto was about to bite into something, he suddenly smiled. He said, oi, I have a great idea, and Shikamaru arched an eyebrow. He laughed and Shikamaru sighed, saying, let's go and eat these in front of Choji, he'll be so jealous. He sighed, you are the real Naruto, without a doubt. As Hinata entered the room, they heard the door suddenly open. O.N. Naruto. Kun, you're up. She managed to say, and Naruto grinned. He said to Hinata, hey, how are you feeling? And she nodded. Naruto smiled as she spoke, hardly stuttering, I'm doing better, the doctor said I should be out of here by tomorrow, how are you? They said you passed out for 3 days, when I heard that I got worried, are you sure you're okay? I'm fine. I just overdid it a little with my training. But I'm right as rain now, and hey, you'll be able to see me kick Neji's butt tomorrow. He said with a grin on his face. She replied, why? Yes, but please be careful, and Naruto smiled. Looking between the two, Shikamaru exclaimed, I will, with my new skills Neji won't even know what hit him. Well, this is undoubtedly a change. Staring at the two, Shikamaru thought to himself, not to say it's a bad thing, but unexpected. Naruto has been acting differently than he did previously, and Hinata appears more self-assured enough, in fact, to converse with Naruto of all people without feeling faint. They might benefit from this in the long run, but if Ino finds out, she'll yell at me for not telling her and start chatting up other people about them for weeks. He sighed to himself, damn it, what a drag, as Naruto got out of bed. Naruto laughed, come on, let's go see Choji, man I can't wait to see the look on his face when we eat these in front of him, Hinata mildly scowled. Hinata protested, Naruto. Kun, that's mean. As the three left the room. He stopped when he saw a well-known redhead enter a room. Ah come on, it'll be fun. Trust me, you'll get a. Huh? Hinata tensed at the thought of Gaara and what he had done to both Lee and Rain Ninja. Naruto said, hey, isn't that the guy from the Sand Village, the one with the gourd? Without realizing it, she reached out and grabbed Naruto's arm, but Naruto was too preoccupied with Gaara. Hey, whose room is that anyway? Lee's room, but why would he? Shikamaru questioned, and then the three of them realized what was going on and hurried over to the room. Lee's space. Sakura had just left the hospital after seeing Lee in the meantime. But until she had finally left the injured genin alone, Gaara had been spying on them without her knowledge. His thoughts kept returning to their fight and how the wounded Lee's sensei intervened at the last second to save him, as he stood over the unconscious Lee. Why? Why had he jumped in to save him, he kept asking himself. He ought to have been disposed of because he had failed. Why, then, was his heart suddenly hurting, and why was his head hurting so much? Why? The boy then turned to face him, his hand outstretched as sand whirled around him. All set to put an end to what he had begun and quell the stinging pain inside of him. He was startled to discover that his body was immobile. He stammered, I can't move, and then he felt a kunai knife at his neck and Naruto was glaring at him from behind. Naruto growled and asked, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" As Hinata stayed behind him and Shikamaru used his shadows to subdue Gaara. He nodded and said, "Shikamaru, you got him secure?" To his friend. Maintaining his jutsu, Shikamaru exclaimed, "I've got him contained, just don't do anything reckless." Once again, Naruto's level of restraint astounded Shikamaru. "I won't, I know how your jutsu works," he said in a serious tone. How in the world had he survived? Naruto lowered his knife and stepped back towards Shikamaru and Hinata. "Now, let's just take a step back and I won't have to use this, deal?" He asked, drawing a glare from Gaara but eventually giving in. "Now, what the heck were you planning to do with bushy brows?" They stared at him with wide eyes, and he said simply, "I wanted to kill him." This guy is crazy. How can he say that with such composure when I have him in my jutsu? This is bad, Shikamaru thought, mirroring Naruto's thoughts. While Naruto was hidden by Hinata. Gaara just stared as Shikamaru said, "You already beat him in the preliminary round, wasn't that enough? What kind of grudge do you have against him now, when he's been crippled by you?" He remarked, "I've got nothing against him. I was going to kill him because I wanted to the surprise of Naruto, Shikamaru, and Hinata." Shikamaru nodded, and Naruto yelled, "What the heck are you talking about? You're sick in the head, you know that. It seems like you had a troubled upbringing if you can be so conceited," Shikamaru remarked, attempting to assess his opponent. "There's a serious problem with this guy. If he starts a fire, we might not be able to put it out, and Hinata could get caught in the crossfire." Staring at the deranged sand shinobi, Shikamaru thought, "Our best bet is to bluff our way out of this." He yelled, "I'll kill you if you get in my way," as Naruto gave him a fierce look and prepared to call forth some clones. Naruto blinked at the Nara but realized Shikamaru's plan. "Listen, we know you're strong, but we're not bad ourselves. You haven't seen our special moves yet," Shikamaru said. Naruto nodded and thought, "I see, we have to bluff our way out. That could work, sorry old man, but I might have to use my secret to get out of this." Naruto turned to face Hinata, who appeared terrified but nodded. "Yeah, you already know what Lee did to you, and he nearly beat you. We, on the other hand, have had a month to prepare. You might not be able to defeat us, +3 on 1 is better odds," Naruto remarked. With a bluff, Shikamaru said, "So, how about you just walk away, and forget all about this, okay?" He was sincerely hoping his plan would work. "I'll say it again, get in my way, and I'll kill you," he uttered in a very grave manner. This man is crazy. As Hinata felt her heart race with fear, Shikamaru thought. Shikamaru yelled at Naruto, "Listen asshole, you really don't want to mess with us." When Shikamaru attempted to reason with Naruto, he would only smile. "What the heck are you doing? Are you trying to get us killed? He's totally out of his mind. Like he's a monster or something," Shikamaru exclaimed. He said, "Well, he can act like a monster, but I've got a real monster inside of me," as Hinata watched in worry and Gaara stared at him. She thought, Naruto. Kun's voice. There's no hint of bluffing, as Gaara slightly lowered his gaze. "A monster. Then you and I are the same," he uttered, leaving Naruto, Shikamaru, and Hinata perplexed. "Because I too possess a monster within me," he uttered, causing Naruto's eyes to expand. "My birth was not what you would call a happy one. I was born into this world, taking the life of the woman I would have called mother, to become the ultimate weapon, the ultimate shinobi. My father sealed the spirit of the sand inside of me. I was born as a monster," he said as his heart began to race. "A ghost of the sand?" As Gaara went on, Shikamaru pondered. Shikamaru gave a slight sneer as Gaara said, its name was Shukaku, believed to be the spirit of an ancient monk that became a demon. Naruto just stared numbly as Shikamaru said, a demonic possession jutsu, and to be used on a baby, that's insane, don't y'all think? Does he also have something sealed inside of him? However, he dubbed it the spirit of the sand. Unless that implies that it is a beast with 9 tails, like the 9 tails? Which of the 9 does pervy sage possess, given that there were 9 of them? Naruto clenched his fist and asked. Gaara stared blankly as Shikamaru said, hey. That's a swell dad you have, sealing something so horrible inside of you. The guy must have really loved ya, huh? Love? Gaara asked, her voice sounding foreign. He asked, staring at them emotionlessly and blankly, don't measure me by your standard, your concept of love differs from mine. Do you want to know what kind of connection family means to me? They are simply pieces of meat connected by hatred and murderous intent. By sacrificing my mother's life, I was created to be the village's perfect weapon. My father taught me the art of shinobi, I was spoiled and allowed to do whatever I wanted, I thought that was love until... Naruto asked, a dark feeling in his chest, until what? Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru gasped wide. As he said, until the day I turned 6 years old, my father then ordered my own assassination for 6 long years. Gaara just grinned as Shikamaru said, what? But you just said your father spoiled you rotten. Why would he order your own assassination and his own son? Once a being becomes too strong they become an existence of fear. My father and the village realized that I was unstable and a problem for the village. I was to be their trump card, but the Kage, my own father, saw me as a dangerous threat. By the time I was 6, my father considered me a threat and tried to have me eliminated. To them, I was a relic of the past that they'd rather have gone, but I kept surviving, I kept on living. And I asked myself, why was I alive? Why did I keep on living? The answer eluded me for years. As a person, as a being, you need a reason to live. Without a reason to live, you're no better than being dead, he said. What in God's name is he discussing? He asked himself, and Naruto comprehended. He put himself in front of the boy and thought, I understand him. He's the same as me. Until finally, I came to the conclusion, I exist to kill everyone besides myself. I found relief within the fear of death, by killing others I found my reason to live. To fight for me, to love only me and to kill only for me. As long as there are people in this world for me to kill, I shall never cease to exist, he said as Shikamaru, Hinata and Naruto stared in horror at the sand ninja. This guy is crazy. With a shiver running down his spine, Shikamaru finished. How awful. To go through life contemplating the murder of others. Hinata pondered the loneliness in Naruto's life and cried as she watched him and his life unfold. If Naruto was the same. And if he had found that same answer. Oh Naruto. I understand. I didn't know why I was here for a long time, too. When everyone around me detested me, why was I still alive? But then Iruka Sensei discovered me, recognized my existence, and saw what was inside of me. I had finally found my calling in life. However, this man lived a life of solitude and found solace in murder. If only I had discovered my own purpose, would I have ended up like him? Naruto dreaded the idea because he could see how his life and Gaara's differed greatly from one another. But then he realized he could never have become like him because of Iruka, the third Hokage, his squad, and his parents, who had loved him before he was even born. However, I'm not sure if I can defeat this guy. He felt himself regress, and he feared. Something that Hinata and Shikamaru observed. He exclaimed, hey. What's wrong, Naruto? Since he had never witnessed Naruto exhibit fear. Naruto. Kun? Hinata inquired as Naruto experienced a fear grip that prevented him from moving. However, as he snapped back at her, Hinata put a hand on his arm and saw worry and concern in addition to fear in her eyes. Fear for him, fear for his security, and the realization that he couldn't be afraid. Not with her in peril. He glared and balled his fists as he turned to face Gaara. Why? You may be messed up in the head. But I still won't let you hurt them. Naruto exclaimed, bringing a shadow clone to life with a combination of his fingers. As sand burst around him, ready to kill them all, Gaara appeared to grin. He yelled as he got ready to strike, then show me. Let me feel alive. That's enough. Was the abrupt cry they heard as Guy Sensei appeared in the doorway and the door opened. The three exclaimed, Guy Sensei, with relief upon seeing the bowl. Haired Jonin and Gaara winced at the sensei. He asked, Friend Gaara, the redhead grunting with brain pain, saying, the finals are tomorrow, so don't go acting up now, especially in a hospital. Or do you want to spend the rest of the finals here? As he left the room, he eventually gave in. But not before he gave Naruto a glare that seemed to reach into his soul. He said, just wait, I'll kill you all. And turned to leave. Before realizing that Gaara had left, Guy Sensei kept his gaze fixed on the door before turning to face the three genin. With a great sigh of relief, Shikamaru asked, you three alright? Then he turned to face Naruto. Man, Guy Sensei, I never thought I'd be so happy to see you. That guy is insane. I seriously think he wants to kill us, he exclaimed. Naruto, what the hell was that guy going on about? What did he mean that he had a monster inside him too? Do you know something about him? He asked as the blonde turned his back. He bellowed, hey, I'm asking you a question. Just as Guy placed a hand on his shoulder. Guy turned to face Lee and said, I'm sure it was nothing, just an attempt to psych you out. Then he turned to face Naruto and Hinata. But I do thank you three for protecting my precious student, he said. While the other two genin nodded, he remarked, you two should probably go back to your rooms. I will make sure he doesn't return. Naruto, though, shook his head. He said, I'm fine, Bushi. Brow Sensei. I need to see someone, to which Guy nodded in response. I understand, I look forward to your match tomorrow. I personally would not root for my eternal rival student over my own. But I do hope you give Neji a good fight, and show your eternal youth. He said with a grin and a sparkle in his pupil. Naruto said, I'm sure I will, as he, Shikamaru, and Hinata left the room. But Shikamaru turned to face Naruto as soon as they were outside. Hinata appeared worried for Naruto and said, seriously Naruto, what was that all about? I've never seen you freeze up like that. And what the heck was he talking about? He said, shaking his head at Shikamaru, it's nothing. I was just trying to bluff our way out like you were. As Naruto cursed himself, he said, but the way he talked, and the way you reacted, it was like you knew what he was going on about. What the hell is going on? As Hinata approached and unintentionally touched his arm. Naruto-kun, she uttered while he fixed her gaze. She said, I know that it might not be easy to talk about, but please, you can talk to us about it, we'll understand, as Naruto felt exposed in front of Hinata and looked into her eyes. He was afraid of her reaction if she found out, even though he really wanted to talk to her about it. I'm sorry, but I can't. He said, gently removing her hand from his arm. I'm sorry, but I can't talk about it right now. It's not that I don't want to, he said, getting a nod of approval from Shikamaru and Hinata in return. She said, blushing red when she realized what she had just said. Okay, I understand. But know that whatever it is, it will never change the way I see you, she said. She tried to cover up her blushing face. I always see you as someone I admire. No, wait, Hinata sighed with relief, and Naruto looked at them before softly grinning and nodding. I think she means, it won't change how we see you. But if you can't talk about it, it's fine, man. Just know we're here if you need us, he said. As Hinata and Shikamaru's eyes grew wide, he said, thanks. I'm glad you understand. And as for freezing up, that guy. That look in his eyes. I don't think I can beat him. Before a thought occurred to him, he said, I don't think anyone can beat him. That guy is unhinged. I don't think Sasuke truly knows what he's up against. I don't know what we're up against. But as Shikamaru raised an eyebrow, he said, I think I know someone that can help. He asked, are you going to tell us? As Naruto waved his hand absent-mindedly. Just, someone I know. He's good with seals and stuff, and I think he might have a solution for Gaara. But I need to go find him, he said as he fled. He yelled as he ran down the hall, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Shikamaru scratched at his head, complaining, "Wait, Naruto. Arg, what a drag," before turning to Hinata. "So, you and Naruto have been chatty lately?" "Eep." Hinata exclaimed, flushed red, and began fidgeting with her fingertips. With a sigh, Shikamaru shook his head. "Yeah, Ino is going to chew my ear off if she finds out about this." Waterfalls. After an hour. In the meantime, Naruto had returned his clothes to Gamabunta after realizing they were nearly useless due to the serious damage they had sustained in their "I'm staying on your head" challenge. However, he was left with no other option except to wear those last few remaining clothes. Locating the corrupted sage was now the more pressing issue. Remarkably, he wasn't there when he tried the first location where he had been located. He searched the area beneath the waterfall, where the girls liked to swim, but he was unsuccessful. Naruto grumbled as he looked everywhere. "Come on, how hard is it to find a perverted old man?" As he sat down, he asked himself, where the heck could he be? He tried to think of an answer, then crossed his fingers in a hand gesture he was familiar with. "Okay, think, pervy. Sage isn't anywhere near his usual spots, he didn't leave a note and he's not anywhere I'd think of. So, how else do I contact him?" He thought to himself. "Shadow clone jutsu," he uttered while conjuring up several duplicates. "Guys, I need some ideas. And you summoned us because? They say 2 heads are better than 1? So I figure the 3 of us can figure this out. Still doesn't help to figure out where pervy Sage is. He's not at his usual spots, the bathhouse, the tea house, the perverted bookstore in the red light district. You'd think he'd stick out like a sore thumb with the way he dressed. Yeah, but remember, he's supposed to be a spy master. Hard to believe given his attitude, but he wouldn't be found so easily. Especially by a genin like us. We've always found him before. Maybe because he wanted us to find him, I mean we're not as stupid as we were a month ago. It's high time we realize the difference in strength between us and those older than ourselves. Yet he keeps falling for the perverted jutsu? I didn't say he was perfect. Guys, focus. We need to contact him and tell him about Gaara. If our hunch is right, and Gaara is a Jinchuriki like us, then Sasuke is in a lot of trouble. How bad could it be? I mean, we're a Jinchuriki and we're not so strong? Difference between us and Gaara is he was trained since birth to be a cold, emotionless killer. We on the other hand were treated relatively normal. He may have had more time to harness his tailed beast's power. That's if he has a tailed beast. He said that the spirit of the sand was supposed to be that of an old monk named Shukaku. Maybe he doesn't have a tailed beast, but an old and cranky monk? And what if it's not the spirit of a monk and is a tailed beast? We can't go up against something like that unprepared. I doubt even Sasuke will be able to beat him. Pervy Sage planned to train us, you know what I mean. To use the 9 tails chakra. So, he had to have a way, contain us, he said with a nod. One of the clones said to Naruto, "Hey, shot in the dark but. Why don't we summon a toad?" The others turned to stare at him. I mean, we both hold the same contract. Maybe they can get a message to him? The clones nodded and Naruto remarked that could work. He did say that they could summon us to Mount Myoboku, wherever that is. He said, "Okay, let's give it a try, thanks guys," before the clones departed and he vanquished the jutsu. He bit his thumb and waved through the hand signals, saying, "I wonder if I should ever address the fact I'm talking to myself." Nah. He called out, summoning jutsu. And brought forth a medium-sized toad with body armor and the summoning contract slung across his back. Gamma was the contract holder and Battletoad for the Toad Summoners, and he went by that name. Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Oh, hello Naruto. How are you? I heard about your challenge to Gamabunta, that was mighty reckless of you." "But he speaks pretty highly of you," Gamma said. "Yeah, well, I had to earn his respect somehow. Anyway, I need your help getting a message to Pervy Sage, I mean Jiraiya," he said while the toad giggled. "It's okay to call him that, we are well aware of his perverted antics, we've had many toads complain about him using us to infiltrate women's bathhouses, you won't follow in his footsteps will you?" Gamma asked with a sigh. "No, after reading Mum's journal, I need to be better. So, anyway, tell him it's important. Because I think there's another Jinchuriki inside the Leaf Village," he said with a nod. As Naruto nodded, he said, I see. Don't worry, I'll make sure he gets the message. Shall I tell him to meet you here? Naruto exclaimed, that would be great, thanks, Gamma. As the medium-sized toad nodded and vanished in a cloud of smoke. As he sat down, Naruto uttered, and now? We wait. I should have bought a pack of cards. In the interim, Hokage's manor. Jiraiya, Geritora, and Sarutobi were examining the Uzumaki sealing scroll while they decoded the ancient scroll in a secure area of the Hokage's manor. The scroll's encryption was accomplished through intricate and sophisticated sealing techniques. Together, their knowledge had only been able to scratch the surface of its potential. They don't know if Kushina was aware of it or if she experienced the same level of difficulties. In any case, though, they were now in possession of the Uzumaki clan's lost sealing arts. But still, the Uzumakis had to go through a lot of work to encrypt this, Jiraiya remarked while scowling. He nodded to Sarutobi, who was taking notes. I thought with the two of us, we could at least decipher half of these encryptions. But we've only managed to cover the first part, the rest is insane, he said. Sarutobi looked over the diagram of the Reaper Death Seal, part of the same sealing technique used to contain the nine-tailed fox years ago, and said, regardless, the first of the sealing jutsu has been unlocked. It looks like this one was designed to add a modification to the dead demon consuming jutsu, a way to counteract the seal's mortality rate, if only for a while. Jiraiya inquired, someone found a way to counteract the death portion? Temporarily, according to this, it was created after the dead demon seal. The user wanted to be able to say goodbye to his loved ones and created a bypass so the Reaper would not consume the user's soul immediately, but it doesn't last forever, Sarutobi said while taking notes. After all, death comes for us all in the end. Jiraiya questioned, and how will this help us? Wait. You're not thinking of. I might have to. Orochimaru has become too big of a threat to ignore. I made the mistake long ago of hesitating and letting him live. If it takes my life to set it right, I'm willing to do so, at least with this. He told the counter seal. I can live a little longer to make sure the village will be in good hands. He said as Jiraiya turned his back. You know it's not your fault, right? Orochimaru was my friend too, at least I thought we were. Maybe if I had been a better friend or tried to talk him out of his insanity, none of this would have happened. But I failed, he was my teammate, and I should have been the one to stop him, Jiraiya complained to Sarutobi. We were both guilty and blameless for Orochimaru. He was always set on his path, I doubt either of us could have stopped him. If I had given him the title of fourth Hokage, he would have done terrible things. Some things were just meant to happen, he said as he returned to the scroll. Sarutobi nodded as Jiraiya spoke, but don't go dying on me yet, old man. You still have those that love and need you. Just as Jiraiya was about to return to work, he said, I will try. Suddenly, a small messenger toad and a puff of smoke appeared. Jiraiya asked Kosuke, Kosuke, what are you doing here? After recognizing the little red toad. Did Ma or Pa want something? Kosuke shook his head in response. Jiraiya sighed and Kosuke said, no, I've got a message for you from Naruto. He says he needs to see you urgently. Jiraiya attempted to say as Kosuke shook his head, I bet he's woken up and panicking that there's only one day left for the finals. Look, just go back and tell him that he's more than ready for the exams, and that. He said, causing both Sarutobi's and Jiraiya's eyes to widen. Nah, you don't understand, Jiraiya. He said it was serious, he says he thinks there's another Jinchuriki inside the Leaf Village. I see another Jinchuriki, I guess it's the Sands, Sarutobi uttered a curse. So that's what they're planning, a Jinchuriki would be difficult to defeat. Bringing one into the village would bring an untold amount of destruction. Jiraiya, go to Naruto and find out what he knows, he instructed with a nod. He asked, Kosuke, where is Naruto now? While making a gesture. Jiraiya nodded as Kosuke said, he said he was waiting at the waterfalls where you and he trained for a month, he should still be there according to Gamma. Geritora took the scroll back from Sarutobi and sealed it inside his body before heading back to Mount Myoboku. I'll be right back, old man, in the meantime, I should take the sealing scroll with me. I doubt we'll learn much more for today, the man remarked. Sarutobi nodded. Jiraiya said, I'll go see what Naruto knows, he may have just given us an edge over what Orochimaru has planned, before teleporting off and abandoning the elderly man on his own. He nodded after taking a closer look at the dead demon's seal modification. Yes, I believe he has. Falls of water. After waiting for Jiraiya to arrive at last, Naruto made the decision to train lightly before the championship match. He was aware that using any jutsu would cause him to deplete his chakra levels once more, which would require 3 days in the hospital. This time, he studied the sealing books under the trees while his clones practiced the taijutsu stances. He reviewed all he had learned in the last month, and although he was no seal master and could not make seals that worked on their own, he could at least identify some seals. He was starting to consider Gaara and the demon he had imprisoned within him. It was odd, but he felt sorry for the sand ninja. Like him, he was a monster sealed inside them before they had a choice and both cut off from the outside world. He was also the son of a cage. Gaara, on the other hand, was more concerned with surviving and maintaining his existence than he was with being acknowledged and accepted. He couldn't help but wonder if things had gone differently and he had given in to his bitterness and anger, would he have ended up like him? Would he have turned into a murderous automaton to prove he was worth it? He considered that, and how nearly he had fallen as he had. Upon recalling Iruka Sensei, he realized that she was the first to accept him as a person, and he realized that he would never have become Gaara. He started, but still, I know the suffering he's gone through, and for some reason, before Jiraiya materialized in a cloud of smoke. Oi, about time, pervy sage. I've been waiting here for over an hour. He apologized, I was busy doing important research, while Naruto gave him a grim look. Naruto said to the sage, who simply laughed, yeah right, important research, you were probably just perving again. He laughed, ha ha ha. Ya got me. And decided it was best to keep the knowledge that he and the third Hokage were attempting to decipher the ancient Uzumaki scroll a secret from him. His tone lightened to serious, anyway, you said you found another Jinchuriki in the village? Yeah, it's Sasuke's opponent Gaara, he said he had a monster sealed inside him, and well. You told me that other villages have tailed beasts as well, Naruto replied with a nod. I see, the fourth Kage's son, this is troubling. But, as far as I know, the sand should only have the one. Tailed Tanuki. But how did you find out he was a Jinchuriki, and what makes you sure he wasn't lying? Jiraiya asked when Naruto began to lower his head. He was sneaking into Lee's room, trying to kill him. Shikamaru, Hinata and I managed to stop him, but he was so serious, so scary that I did something stupid. I was trying to scare him, told him I had a monster inside me, hoping he would back off, but when he told me he had the same, when I looked into his eyes and he told me of how his life was so cold and alone, I knew he wasn't lying, he was like me, Naruto elaborated as he recalled the exact eyes he had as a kid. The eyes of isolation. He sighed and said, I see. And what happened then? To Naruto. As Jiraiya considered telling Naruto about Orochimaru and his plans to destroy the village, Naruto said, Bushier Brow Sensei came in, managed to scare off Gaara and then I sent Gamma to find you. But what is another Jinchuriki in this village? I thought Jinchurikis are supposed to be secret weapons, so why is he here? But he didn't want to burden him because he was also focused on his match with Neji and possibly Gaara. It doesn't matter, he's still a shinobi like yourself and he's here to get promoted. You should instead focus on how you're going to deal with him if you end up fighting him. Jiraiya replied with a nod. Jiraiya waved his hand and he said, I guess. But he's going up against Sasuke first, what if he cripples Sasuke like he did Lee? He gave Naruto a pack of tiny square paper seals and said, I'm sure Kakashi has taught him enough to avoid that outcome, and this time the examiners and Jonin will intervene much sooner. However, if you do end up fighting him, take these. Jiraiya nodded, and Naruto said, you mean these are the suppression seals, that's the ones you were going to use on me if I lost control of the 9 tails? That's right, they should suppress any tailed beast chakra inside Gaara, which should help you to contain him. You do have a plan for facing him? He asked with a nod. Naruto put the seals in his pouch and said, I do, but given the new information, it may not work. So, I might have to improvise if he goes insane. Well, I guess that's all I can do now. I could get a bit more training in today, but I doubt it will change anything, he said while Jiraiya nodded. Alright, just to let you know, I wanted to give you something, he said, reaching behind him to retrieve a box that was wrapped. He handed Naruto the package, who raised an eyebrow and opened it. I was going to leave it at your apartment, but seeing as you summoned me here, I figured I would give it to you now, he said. There was a brand new outfit inside, including an orange shirt, an orange interior for the hood, and a black long sleeve zip up hoodie with 2 thin orange stripes down each arm. Black pants with metal plated hands, paired with matching sandals and fingerless gloves. He also pointed out a fresh piece of pure black cloth for his headband. A scroll harness that was going to be strapped to his left leg was also present, along with a pair of light gray shinobi shin pads and forearm guards. Up to 2 sealing scrolls can be stored in the scroll harness. Additionally, there was a shinobi chest armor made of dark red leather with the Uzumaki clan symbol engraved on the front. It featured a big strap that he would wear over his left shoulder, giving his right shoulder more leeway. His stomach would be unencumbered by the armor, which would only cover his chest. Jiraiya remarked, I found the chest piece in the Uzumaki scroll, considering it a very late birthday present, as Naruto stared at the present in front of him and fought back the tears that were about to well up in his eyes. You okay? Jiraiya looked at the young man with a hint of guilt. Yeah, I'm fine. This is one of the few gifts I rarely get. The only people I get a present from are Iruka Sensei and the old man, so getting one now. Sorry, I must look pathetic, right? He said. One more indication that his absence from the boy's life was a failure on his part as the boy's godfather. He wanted to tell him that the little wallet he carried around with him, which looked like a frog, was a gift he had given the boy a long time ago. However, he would undoubtedly raise a plethora of queries and charges if he did. In addition, he was unable to look past his errors and toward his godson's future. No. Not at all, he merely replied, grinning at Naruto. He nodded as Naruto nodded and pointed to the river. Well, before I head off, is there anything else you need before your match? He asked. Yeah, I just had an idea on how I can limit Gaara's sand. Got any spare sealing scrolls? To which Jiraiya replied with a nod and a smile. That's using your head, he said, and Naruto smiled in return.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.